The Louie T Network is powered by MusicHead University. MusicHeads, classes in session. Turn me up. Enroll on YouTube now. Link is in the description.
Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T? Welcome to the Command Post Live. You know what it is. Post up. Take command. I, of course, am your Commander-in-Chief, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. We got a movie today. Look at us. When they sent out that tweet earlier today about 7 p.m., kicking back, watching Commander's Log Episode 3, I was expecting the customary 16 to 20-minute video that we're going to eat up and be excited about. And, I had a number of different things going today. My wife went to get her hair done, so I had the kiddos by myself. So I was in charge of, dinner, bath, bed, all of that good stuff. I'm working on like 3 different things at once. So, naturally, I don't ever get to the video when it first is released. So I had no idea how long it was until I had multiple people hit me up and say, bro, did you see the new video? And I'm thinking they're just excited. And then I had 3 people say, it's almost an hour. And I'm like, no, stop playing. So I had to go. I stopped what I was doing. And I checked the video out to see just how long it was. And sure enough, it was 50 minutes plus. I said, wow, we got a movie. Like, in my mind, I was prepared to not get another episode of Commander's Log. Here's why. Somebody had tweeted this out the other day. Somebody had tweeted at me that this explains why we haven't gotten a Commander's Log, because of that new documentary that's coming out. The pick is in. We talked about it on the podcast. Washington is one of the 4 teams that is featured in that documentary, along with the Bears, Rams, and Cardinals. And so I felt like a lot of the content that they were going to use for that, Washington, there was overlap there. And so they didn't want to step on the toes of the documentary. So that's why we hadn't seen anything yet. To my surprise, they're going to probably have other bits of content that we get. Maybe there will be a little bit of overlapping and things that we just saw. But the reason we didn't get anything sooner was because it was 50 minutes long. They had a lot of content to chop up, splice up, put together, get the players in there for rookie minis, get their sound bites, and kind of put it all together, and it fit in so seamlessly. I've been telling y'all I'm excited, right? And y'all didn't want to listen to me, same old. But I'm like, hey, what I am not going to do this year, and I'm holding steadfast, right? Because I had a couple of people already say, hey, they got me, man. They starting to reel me in. They starting to reel me in. I'm not going to allow myself to be swayed. I'm just going to enjoy the process. I've been telling you guys this. The beauty of having gone through this before with other teams. Now, again, I'd give anything to have it happen here and have the success that the Braves have had. The Grizzlies haven't tasted the type of success that I think they're due for, and it may be coming here in the very near future. But they're on that trajectory, right? They're considered one of the better teams in the West. They had, a step back season this year because of injuries, and other things too, obviously. But, if they're all healthy and they're locked in, they're as good as anybody in the West. I can't wait till I can say the same thing about this team. And I think we're on the path for the first time in my life. And I can say this confidently. For the first time in my life since Gibbs 1.0, I truly believe this team is on the path to success. And not just lightning in the bottle, 7-9. Oh, look, we got hot, won 6 in a row to finish up and win the division success. I'm talking long-term sustainable success. Now, it all is going to go back to the number 2 overall pick in this past year's draft in order for that success to take place. We can be as excited as we want to. We can love this staff. We can love Chef P and what he's cooking up. We can love the new ownership group. We can love all the moves that are being made. All of this shit is awesome. And I've said this already. This has been one of the most fulfilling and exhilarating and refreshing off seasons as a Washington Commanders fan that I can remember. Again, winning the Super Bowl is the ultimate high, but the game has changed so significantly, and the way it's covered and how things work, that while that was excellent, me running around the house as a 5-6-year-old with my Hutch helmet and my Mark Rippon jersey and my starter pants, while that was exciting and fun, it pales in comparison to what it would feel like to have it happen now. With the way that the NFL is covered, with how things go, it pales in comparison to what it would feel like to have that happen now. And to have gone through what we've gone through as fans, to experience what we've experienced as fans, to have the PTSD that we have as a fan base, to see all of this stuff starting to come into focus, starting to come to fruition, the fruits of our labor, all of the pain and the suffering, all the things that we've gone through as fans, and sometimes even having yourself question, why am I even doing this shit? I can't speak for you. I've had many a moment where I said, why do I even do this? Why am I even a fan of this team? Why does this even mean as much as it does to me? Why do I even care? Because I do. I don't really have an answer for you. I do. I care. And so to see everything transpiring in the manner that it has gone, and the thing that has probably been the most gratifying is a mantra and a motto that I live by. Everything happens for a reason. And seeing how this offseason has played out, seeing how some of the moves that we didn't want, it was funny. I was back in the archives today. I was in the vault, and I don't know what I was doing while I was in the vault earlier today, but I clicked on a video and I looked at the comment section, and that video was the Dan Quinn hire video. Gotcha, bitch, if you remember that thumbnail, right? And it's Dan Quinn smiling like this. And I just went in the comment section and I just started reading comments to see how we felt about the initial news of Dan Quinn. And I tried to brace you for impact, right? I told you guys the night before, brace yourself. I had a video called Brace Yourself. Okay. Dan Quinn is about to be hired as the new head coach of the Washington Commanders. We kind of saw the writing on the wall. And I was just reading through the comments. And some of you were so disappointed, so upset. Some people were like, you know what? I'm about to go watch women's college basketball. I'm about to go watch the WNBA. I don't have time for this shit. People were so up in arms. One person said it felt like I just kissed my sister, right? Like, these are the kind of comments that were left in the comment section of that video. It's like getting downstairs on Christmas Day, seeing that new shiny bike out of the corner of your eye, getting excited only to get downstairs and learn that that bike doesn't belong to you. It belongs to your sister. These are the comments in the comment section. Think about how you felt late January, early February, when the news broke that Dan Quinn was going to be the next head coach of the Washington Commanders. Think about how you felt. Now come full circle and think about how you feel about DQ's hire now. And I remember having this feeling of rejection from, Ben Johnson, because we were on the ups, right? We were on the way up. We had just got Adam Peters. It was feeling like we couldn't lose. I felt like I was at the dice table. I'm hot. And it didn't matter what I did with the dice. Kissed them, closed my eyes, threw them behind my back, threw them behind my armpits. It didn't matter. I knew I wasn't gonna crap out. I knew I was hot. Put them all, push all the chips. I know I'm gonna win. That's how it was feeling. And then Ben Johnson said, "Bro, y'all still the Commanders, man. Your job ain't shit." And it deflated us for a little bit. And we didn't know where to go after that. Could you imagine if he would have taken his job? And we say taking his job as if it was offered to him. We don't even know if he would have gotten the job if DQ still wouldn't have been the guy. But could you imagine if he had ended up being the hire? We don't have these same warm and fuzzies. We don't have the vibes that we have. We've talked about this offseason. We've talked about this a number of times. But I love when something happens, you don't expect it, you weren't looking for it, you didn't know you needed it, but you did. That's happened to me so many times in my life, I can't even count. Where I wanted something else, I got something that I wasn't expecting, that I did not ask for, but the entire time it was what I needed the entire time. That's what the hire of Dan Quinn has been for this organization. It started with ownership, with Josh Harris, with Mitchell Rales, with Magic Johnson, Ein, and all of those guys. Started there. Then it went to that advisory committee. Don't forget about the old advisory committee, right? Bob Myers and Rick Spielman coming in and helping recruit Adam Peters. You get your guy in Adam Peters. And it changed everything. It changed. He was a game changer. We're going to talk a lot about Adam Peters tonight because we saw a side of Adam Peters we hadn't seen yet. We've gotten the buttoned up, reserved, Adam Peters. Madeline, come here. Family man, talking to his wife and his kids and not swearing and, oh shucks, big smile. We got the competitor dog Adam Peters behind the scenes with this Commander's log. We got the swearing Dan Quinn, F-bomb, mother effer, shit, all of that good stuff. And you don't have to cuss to be a dog, but certain people have switches that they turn on and off, right? Clearly, Chef P has a switch. And he's a killer. All right? Don't you push me. Don't you push me. All right? I ain't no killer, but don't you push me. He's a killer, though. Howard Roseman found out the hard way. We're going to talk about that a little bit later on. I can just tell you this. This offseason was everything that I hoped it would be. I didn't know what to expect. I couldn't know what was to become of this offseason. But we had dubbed it the second most important offseason in franchise history. We had dubbed it that prior to it getting underway. And I am proud to say it has not disappointed in any way, shape, or form. And we talked about this, and I talked about this when I did my draft video, my draft grades video. I said, this is a foundational draft here. The type of players they took, the guys that they took at those positions, what those players mean, what they can ultimately provide for us, and instantly, I may add, this is a foundation building type of draft. And to see it and how it came together, the only thing left now is for these guys to go out and show and prove. But everything that you'd hope to have, we got to see a glimpse of it there. Right. So we'll talk about that show. You know, I'm big on these episodes of the Commander Log and wanting to break them down and things of that nature. So obviously we're going to get to that tonight. But we're going to start first with head coach Dan Quinn's presser. He did have a press conference earlier today, and that presser was the end of mandatory minis. It marks the end of the offseason program and the offseason work for the players. There's now this 5-6 week period where they will be out of the building. Everyone will be out of the building, including the coaching staff, the administration, everyone. They can actually turn the lights off at Commanders Park and just let the building kind of rest for about a month. It's rare that ever happens, but everybody's going to kind of get away from the game for a little bit and come back recharged, ready to rock and roll. And if you're the Commanders, you really got to recharge the battery because you really don't get another break until December. Your bye week is until week 14. So you literally have to recharge the battery. So Quinn spoke, and we'll get into that first. And then we'll jump into episode 3 of season 3 of the Commander's Log, At the Top of the Pile, which is, I don't know if DQ did this intentionally, but everything it feels like has had intentionality with what, with this staff this offseason. So I wouldn't be shocked if him using the phrase "at the top of the pile" was an ode and a nod to the pending episode that we were going to get, because he actually used that exact phrase. As a matter of fact, it's the second bullet point that I have in the notes that I took from his presser. So we'll get to that here in a second. But the first thing he started his press conference with is he gave some big ups to Ken Norton Jr., our linebackers coach, who addressed the team today, essentially giving them that speech that they need to hear about keeping the main thing, enjoying this time off, but not doing anything reckless. Don't put yourself or your teammates or your team in harm's way. You've worked so hard to get to this point. Don't piss it away doing something foolish. We've seen guys get in trouble this offseason. Rashid Rice, one of the main guys that has found himself getting into some trouble. We've seen guys get into some trouble that was irreversible. Irreparable damage was done. Henry Ruggs. Hell, you want to hit close to home, DeShazer Everett, right? Like, don't put yourself in a position where it could all be taken away from you in a moment's notice. Like, be smart and intentional about the things that you're doing. And so DQ was pretty fired up about what Ken Norton Jr. had to say to the team, and really enjoyed the message, and he felt like it was something that the team needed to hear. So the next thing DQ talked about was health. And I put it in all caps. And he said after they asked him about health, he talked about, a couple of guys that were held out of the offseason program, F.A. Obata and Johnny Newton in particular. He's like, those guys are hitting all their markers. But he's like, for the most part, we came out healthy. I don't like talking about health, so I'm gonna kind of leave that alone. But the thing that he said was health is at the top of the pile. And having watched the video and knowing that that's the name of the episode 3, I wonder if there was intentionality, there, and because we've never heard him use that phrase. At least I haven't. Maybe you have. I've never heard him use the phrase at the top of the pile. And we know DQ is a guy that loves his DQ-isms, right? Brotherhood and kick ass and to go, right? He loves that to go phrase, So never heard him use that one before. So I don't know if that was intentional or not, but health is obviously at the top of the pile. I agree. He then talked about Jaden Daniels, and he said that Jaden has this rare blend of confidence and swagger that he exudes, but he said he's also has the humility of a young player, and that's a rare find. And I think we can all agree, literally, that was the conversation that we had yesterday about Jaden Daniels, is that he gives off the impression of, I know I can do this, and I know I'm capable of leading this team, but I've got a long way to go. And my ears are open, my eyes are open. I'm willing to learn from any and everybody. I don't have it all figured out. And so there's that fine line, that fine balance that you want your quarterback to have between being confident, borderline cocky, right? But as Terry mentioned, as DQ mentioned, he's humble. There's a humility there. We talked about that. That was what was lacking from guys like Dwayne Haskins, God rest his soul, and Robert Griffin III. And we talked about that yesterday. They didn't have that humility, that humbleness to be able to say, I don't have all the answers. I don't know. But what I am going to do is put in this work. I am willing to put in the extra time and effort to figure it out. I am willing to listen to what everyone has to say. I am willing to do the things necessary to make myself available to my teammates and make them feel like I'm not too big for anything, right? Then he talked about the Marcus Mariota effect, and I talked about this, and I want to talk about this again because every time I bring up the Marcus Mariota effect, somebody wants to bring up, Louie, I think that's a false narrative because remember, they wanted Sam Darnold first. That's true. That's cool. They did want Sam Darnold, and he chose Minnesota. But it doesn't change the fact that Marcus Mariota has a very similar background to Jaden Daniels. And to me, again, I talked about this earlier, and this was another one of those situations where I felt like their intention initially was Sam Darnold. You're not wrong. But guess what? Everything happens for a reason. And even though they wanted Sam Darnold, guess what? They got Marcus Mariota, and they probably didn't even know. They didn't know they needed Marcus Mariota here. But he was the best thing that could have happened here in Washington for Jaden Daniels. Because no one else can truly speak to, like, the absolute particulars of Jaden Daniels' situation outside of being a part of the COVID pandemic and transferring schools, because Mariota only played at Oregon, right? Outside of that fact, Marcus Mariota, similar experience throughout college into the NFL up to this point. He can speak to being a Heisman Trophy winner. He can speak to being the number 2 overall pick. He can speak to being the face of a franchise and having all that weight placed upon your shoulders and having to carry that burden. Nobody else can speak to that. Sam Darnold can't speak to that. Yeah, he was the number 3 pick in the draft. He didn't win the Heisman Trophy. He doesn't know what that feels like. He doesn't know the extra added pressure of being the Heisman Trophy winner. He doesn't know what being the number 2 pick in the draft is. But Marcus Mariota does. And so DQ talked about the Marcus Mariota effect, and he said we couldn't have picked a better guy to be in that locker room with Jaden Daniels. They really built a strong bond together. And I just go back to that photo of Jaden Daniels probably being 13, 14 years old, rocking a Marcus Mariota jersey. If that's not some sort of poetic justice and, some weird, wacky symmetry there, I don't know what is, right? I'm pretty sure he's shown him that photo like, bro, I had your jersey in middle school. You know what I mean? Or I had your jersey in high school. That's crazy, right? And now it comes full circle. You're playing, on the same team, sharing, the same locker room and the same quarterback room with this guy. I just think it's phenomenal. And that's another one of those, we didn't know we needed it, but we needed it. Didn't necessarily want it, but we needed it type of situations. DQ talked about how further along Jaden Daniels is on the execution of the play, the verbiage, calling it in the huddle, getting guys lined up. He's talked about this before, and he said he's advanced, in that regard. He really has done a really good job of getting into that playbook and putting himself in a position to be ahead of schedule in that regard. And what's crazy is John Kahn was pressing DQ to try to get something that, Jaden Daniels needs to work on. And, the best DQ could come up with is, oh, he's a rookie. He's got energy. He was so excited. There's this youthful exuberance that he has. He was so excited when we had 11 on 11s. He came up to me and said, Coach, it's real football now, right? And so that's the best DQ could come up with, is that he's got a lot of energy. He's a rookie, And so whether that's, again, intentionally being done, where I don't want to speak any negative, words about my quarterback, or literally I'm so impressed. I don't want to go too far in praising him, but I really don't have anything negative to say about the kid yet. I've been that impressed with him. Whatever the case may be, and you just love to hear it, right? Dan Quinn then talked about his relationship with Kim Norton Jr. He talked about them going all the way back to 2009, his first stint in Seattle. When DQ was the defensive line coach, he then moved on to the University of Florida, where he was the defensive coordinator there, had success, came back 2 years later, was the defensive coordinator for the Seattle Seahawks. And that's where he and Ken Norton's bond strengthened even more. And they had a relationship from that point forward that was forged in, that bond that they formed in Seattle. So it's kind of come full circle. He's back with DQ again. And I think he's really appreciative of having Ken Norton Jr. on this staff. He's like, if I had a young linebacker, I couldn't think of a better, coach, ex-player, a guy that embodies what being a linebacker is all about than Ken Norton Jr. And, I talked about this, I think it was yesterday, it might have been the day before yesterday, but, Ken Norton Jr. was one of my favorite non-Redskin defensive players, especially after he left Dallas. I watched a lot of Cowboys football growing up, as you could imagine. Dad is a massive Cowboys fan. Of course, most of you know that. For those of you who don't, I grew up in a Cowboys household. How I made it out alive, don't ask me. But Ken Norton Jr. was a badass. He was a beast. And I loved it when he finally left and went to the 49ers. And I told you he had one of my favorite quotes, when he went there and helped them win a Lombardi. And again, he's a 3-time Super Bowl winning champion. He's a guy that won 3 in a row, with 2 different teams. Charles Haley did the same thing. Dion won 2 in a row with 2 different teams. He did it with Dallas and San Francisco. He became sort of a hired gun at that point, jumping from Atlanta to San Fran, from San Fran to Dallas, and helping those 2 teams win Super Bowl. It felt like whatever team got Dion in free agency, they were going to win the Super Bowl. It almost felt like he shifted the power, the balance of power wherever he went, right? Anyway, DQ told a Earl Thomas story about, one time they had a meeting And the coaches had gotten there 5:30 or whatever. The players ended practice at around 1:30, and they had all split. And then he hears some music coming from one of the rooms, and it was Earl Thomas, still there, right? Getting work in, watching film. And he's like, everybody's got their own process, you know, when it's a good time for them. And he's like, it's just important. He kept bringing up Jordan McGee. He brought him up at least 3 times in his press conference, a couple of times talking about Ken Norton Jr. and how much of a privilege it is for a guy like Jordan McGee to be mentored by a player like Bobby Wagner and a coach like Ken Norton Jr. He's in a really, really enviable spot. And you saw that in the Commander's Log episode, Jordan McGee talking about, like, bro, I literally showed up and a first ballot Hall of Fame player, and Bobby Wagner is my teammate in my linebacker room, and I literally get to talk to him every single day and pick his brain. Like, that's crazy, right? We'll talk more about that a little bit later on. And so he talked about Zach Ertz and Bobby Wagner's process. And again, I can't help it. The more and more I listen to DQ talk, I listen to Chef P talk, and we keep hearing about the leadership, and what that means and what it embodies and how big it is. I can't help but think about the intentionality behind bringing those 2 guys on board, right? One, they can still both help as players. Like, they're not Thomas Davis, you know, at the end of his career when Ron got here and brought him in, and he literally was here for moral support on some Udonis Haslam shit, right? Where you're like, bro, I'm not going in the game. I can't actually play, right? These dudes actually still got football left in them. They can still actually contribute at a high level, I may add. But their veteran leadership, priceless, immeasurable. And I'm starting to see there was intentionality behind bringing those kinds of players, Austin Eckler as well, throw him in that mix, to this team. There was intentionality done there. These 2 in particular, though, and DQ went out of his way to mention Ertz and Bobby Wagner. And again, he brought up Jordan McGee, right? And he said, look, it's not for you to take Bobby Wagner's process and make it your own, but it's to recognize the process and understand that you need to have one, right? Doesn't have to look exactly like Bobby's. That was part of the reason he told the Earl Thomas story. Is like, it doesn't have to look like 1 o'clock might not be a good time for you. 5:45 in the morning, like Jaden Daniels and Luke McCaffrey, that might not be a good time for you. But 8:30 at night might be a great time for you. Well, everybody else left 3 hours ago. But 8:30 at night might be the perfect time for you, right? Everybody's process looks different. Just figure out what it is, right? He talked about Jaden versus Marcus, and we knew eventually this would come up, right? He said, quote, no great declaration, you know, about who's going to be QB1 heading into camp, but he said, Jaden's making unbelievable progress. Translation, he's well on his way to becoming QB1. Again, he, in DQ's words, he's hitting all of his markers, right? Like, I talked about this on the podcast. I've talked about this on several shows. He's on schedule. He's right where he's supposed to be. So it's only a matter of time before he is given the keys, given the speech. Hey, don't wreck this shit. All right. Pay attention. Don't be playing with the radio. No drinking and driving. Be responsible. You give them the keys, you give them the speech, and you turn them loose, and you hope you've done enough, right? Hope you've done enough. But we're not there yet. Not quite. Almost. I thought this was interesting. One of the more interesting things that DQ said, and this is something else we really haven't had at our disposal, during the Ron Rivera tenure. He said these scrimmages that we'll have will help determine the O-line and D-line starters and rotations. You learn a lot about your guys in the trenches when you go up against other teams. It's one thing to go up against your own guys. And again, iron sharpens iron. So you want to get good work there. But we're going to go up against some pretty good defensive line, especially the Jets in particular. Like that's the one you circle and say, hey, let's see if they get their asses kicked then, right? Jaden Daniels might have a rude awakening in that week of practice, right? Going up against that vaunted Jets defense. But that's what you need. You need that kind of work. You want him to have that experience, even if he gets his ass kicked that week. It's a learning experience, as everything will be this year. So we're going to learn a lot about the offensive line in those scrimmages. And ultimately, they'll make some decisions based off of, what happens training camp, those scrimmages, and in those preseason games. So I don't think we will have a set offensive line until probably the week of that second preseason game. I think the first preseason game, they'll have an idea. You may try out one group, and in the next game, you try that third preseason game. I think is going to be, they would have already made their decision, I think, on the 5 guys. And really, you'd like to have that done prior to any of the preseason games, to be honest with you, because you want those guys to get as many reps. But we'll see. Again, all of this is new for me as far as how they conduct business. So we'll figure out, how they go about handling competitions and when do they christen someone the winner and kind of settle in on the 5 guys, that because you always hear those 5 have to play as one. The sooner you get those 5 guys on the field together and have them playing together and getting those reps repeatedly over and over again, the faster they can get to playing as one. So we'll see, what they ultimately decide to do there, right? DQ talked about B-Rob and Austin Eckler providing balance with one another, that they have very different skill sets. I talked about that yesterday, when we were talking to Austin Eckler. He spoke to the media yesterday, and I said Eckler himself even brought that up. Like him and B-Rob have 2 totally different skill sets. They kind of play well off of each other. I think this is the perfect role for Austin Eckler, to be honest with you, because he won't be asked to do a lot of the in between the tackles stuff. It's not that they won't ask him to do any of that, but he won't be tasked with, 18 carries like he would have been when he was with the Chargers, when they really didn't have any other running backs that they were all that fond of. And so he was really their bell cow. He was the guy toting the rock 22 times, catching it another 7-8 times. And he was the guy with 274 all-purpose yards. But Austin Eckler isn't the biggest guy in the world. You don't really want to put all of that on his plate if you don't have to. We're not going to ask him to do all of that stuff. And DQ talked about those 2 even being on the field at the same time, which Austin Eckler brought up as well, right? So you love to hear it. You love to see, because I think that has a chance to be a very dynamic backfield. DQ talked about being impressed with the uptick in ball skills and takeaways throughout camp. He said when they first got there, it was something that they really wanted to see. Who had that ability, because Quan Martin was a guy that he brought up in particular, and he said he was asked specifically about Quan Martin, were they fond of him? And remember, he had already told us, him and Joe Witt Jr. had already told us earlier in the offseason that they were very fond of Quan Martin, him and Emmanuel Forbes, that they had worked out both of those players. They were fond of them, and they were very intrigued by their skill set. But Quinn said, we knew that Quan Martin was a really good tackler. What we thought he could do was, showcase some ball skills, but we weren't 100% sure about that. In seeing him, we've been very impressed. He brought up the one-hand interception that he had. He also talked about Jeremy Chin. He talked about those 2 safeties in particular. I'm so excited about this defense. I don't know if you can tell. I've been talking about this defense all offseason. I've been telling y'all all offseason, This is the most confidence I've had in the defense since probably 04, 05. That, neighborhood, Greg Williams being here, right? Gibbs 2.0. Is this the last time? That's the last time I had any confidence in a Washington Redskins Commanders football team defense. I'm so looking forward to this season defensively. It's rare that you hear that come out of my mouth, because I've told you this multiple times. I'm a nervous wreck when the defense is on the field, because anything can happen. And usually our defense isn't very good. So almost anything is liable to happen. I was never even comfortable on 3rd and 17. We've had seasons where we were the worst defense in the league with 3rd and 15 plus. We've had seasons of that kind of stuff. So I was never comfortable. I think I'm going to be so anxious to see this defense get on the field. And, hearing DQ talk about guys living up to expectations, exceeding them in certain instances, like a Quan Martin and a Jeremy Chin, as far as, their ability to take it away, bringing in a Mike Sainer still, understanding that Emmanuel Forbes has a unique skill set, seeing all of these guys kind of come into focus. It's really exciting. I'm not even going to hold you, man. I'm so looking forward to this offense or defense. And I hope that my excitement for the offense grows as well, right? For me, the defense is way ahead of the offense. And as far as how I think we're going to win games, I think it's going to be predicated on, the defense setting the table, right? And the offense just not messing it up. I hope that changes. If you have any aspirations of winning 9, 10, 11 games this year, the offense is going to have to catch up to the defense. I don't know if that's going to happen in year 1 or not, but I'm so looking forward to this defense. Speaking of those two guys in particular, Quan Martin and Jeremy Chin, Quinn kind of stuck there with that whole thought process, and he continued talking about those two in particular. He was asked about versatility. Any guy stuck out to him that offered more versatility than he knew about beforehand, and he stuck with those same two players, Jeremy Chin and Quan Martin. He talked about Frankie Louvu as well, but he's like, I kind of knew that was his game, right? That was part of the reason they went out and sought after him. But Jeremy Chin has shown the ability to do multiple things, and he said Quan Martin kind of impressed him. And I, for someone like myself who, we watched Quan Martin, a lot at Illinois, we knew that versatility was part of his game, but Ron and Jack only really used him in the nickel as a slot. So you didn't really get to see a lot of his versatility. But, Quinn's like, we've been dropping him down in the box. We dropped him over the slot. We've had him play deep, and he's been able to handle every single one of those responsibilities, and we feel really good about him. And obviously, he had the big pick. Jeremy Chin had a nice pick on a tip that he dove for, and so you're already seeing that takeaway mentality starting to fester, right? Again, it's the offseason, it's OTAs, yada yada yada, but that's a mindset. And you establish that now. You don't wait until training camp or the regular season to establish taking it away. You start taking that bitch away now, right? You don't want your kid sucking on that pacifier until they're 4. You start taking it away now, right? You don't wait until they're 4 and say, all right, cold turkey, give me the passy. You're gonna have a fight on your hands. You start taking it away now, right? Start taking the damn football away now. That's what they're doing. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. He talked about the foundation being set, the DQ, and he said, feels like the tide is changing. He said, when we first got there, we were trying to set the tone, right? Kind of get everybody to understand the brotherhood and understand how important it is to fight for one another, to create those bonds that become unbreakable, that make you the type of team that's going to be able to withstand whatever may come our way. But, as time progressed and we started putting stuff in, and, the veterans showed up first, and then the rookies came in, and we were all able to tie them in together. And, he said we started to see the change, and we started to see guys get it, and we started to see more competitiveness, and we started to see the activity ramp up. And he's like, you could feel the swell, right? It was a ground swell, and you could feel the tide changing. And he's like, there's a foundation being set. I got chills when he said that, because I've talked about that this offseason. The foundation being set for something big. That is the start. That is the genesis of when you're a young team and you're trying to figure it out. There has to be a foundation set, something you can build upon. That's happening right now as we speak with this Commanders organization. Not just the football team, the organization as a whole. It's been really fun to watch. For years, we dreamed of this type of situation presenting itself to us, but we didn't think we would ever see this come to fruition. And then he gave a little background information on Quan Martin, and he can see the confidence building in Quan. He talked about when they were in Dallas, they worked him out pretty good at Illinois, and they can see Quan turning into a playmaker. I told y'all, remember when DQ and Joe Witt Jr. were first, brought in, and I think somebody asked me who is going to be the biggest beneficiary, and I've been on other people's channels, different shows, and I've been echoing this sentiment all offseason. The secondary to me is going to be the biggest winner with the hire of Dan Quinn and Joe Witt Jr. in particular, because Joe Witt, similar to Nick Saban, who is a defensive guy, but at his core, he's a defensive backs coach. So when you hear Nick Saban say Mikey Sainristil, pound for pound, is the best player in this draft, he's looking at it not just from a football player standpoint, he's looking at it from a defensive back standpoint and saying, bro, that guy right there is a damn good football player because he's a damn good defensive back, right? And Joe Witt Jr. has that same mentality. He's been a defensive backs coach for much of his career, right? Pass game, defensive pass game coordinator, all of that stuff. So he's looking at it through a secondary lens. He talks about Charles Woodson all the time. Why? Because he coached Woodson in the secondary. So his baby is going to be in that secondary. You want to know why guys like, Trayvon Diggs and Deron Bland had such dramatic, meteoric rises? Look no further than guys like Joe Witt Jr. Yeah, Al Harris had a lot to do with it too. I don't want to diminish what his role was in their success, but don't act as if Joe Witt Jr., wherever he goes, turnovers don't follow in bunches. A guy like Quan Martin is really going to benefit. He's at the very top, and I've been saying this all offseason. He's at the top of my list. A lot of people are hoping it's Emmanuel Forbes. I think it's Quan Martin. He's going to be the guy that you're going to look at and say, yo, Quan, he's a dog. He's a dog. And DQ said, I see the confidence building in him. So that was the DQ presser. So now we make our way to at the top of the pile, episode 3 of season 3 of Commander's Log. And I wasn't sure we were going to get this after learning that Washington was a focal point in the documentary NFL Films Presents and the Pick Is In. I just assumed that, okay, they're going to use a lot of the footage that they got from the draft, the war room, in that documentary, so we're probably not going to see it. Another episode of Commander's Log, and if we do, it'll be a watered down version. Not in my wildest dreams did I imagine we were going to get 50 minutes. I mean, that's more than you get in an hour-long special, because with commercials, that hour-long special is probably more like 46 minutes. We got 50 minutes of Commander's Log. That's 3 episodes, really, if you think about it, in one. All right. So They start the episode off with Daryl Green's jersey number retirement surprise. And we had seen a lot of this already because they had, put a lot of this out on social media. We ate it up. A lot of us older fans who watched Daryl Green play, and I say older fans like I'm 50 or something like that. But I had the pleasure of watching most of his career. Some people watched his entire career. The beauty of Daryl Green was he spanned over 3 different decades. So because he played for so long, I got to see pretty much his entire, most of his career. I won't say his entire career because it felt like I watched his entire career because he played for man was drafted in 83 as a first round pick and he didn't retire till 2002. Let that sink in. Like how long he played in the NFL. Like that's unheard of at the cornerback position. You'll never see that happen in today's NFL. Never. That's never going to happen again with a corner. That could happen with an offensive lineman. It could happen with a punter, a field goal kicker. It will never, ever, ever, ever happen with a cornerback again. So to watch him play for as long as he did, it felt like I had watched 2 careers. But to see him be surprised, and you could tell it meant a lot to him. And he's not alone in this. So many of those veterans that poured into this organization and any sort of heritage and winning history, to see how those guys were kind of shut out of the organization, not acknowledged, it kind of breaks my heart. And to see those guys light up now, to see John Riggins, like I've seen Riggo and I've heard him talk and speak about how he would never come back. And then to see him now this offseason stand up and talk, and he had a charity event that he was at, and I watched him talk about this new ownership group and how refreshing they've been and how he feels like him and a lot of the other guys that were staying away, they can all come back now. They're all welcome back into the building. And to see Daryl Green, who said, it touched me. I got choked up the first time I watched it. I'm not even going to front. I'm not even going to hold you. When he said, I gave so much to this team, I had put it away. And you could tell he was getting choked up because he was like, I didn't ever think I was going to be here doing this in this building and being celebrated in the manner that I'm being celebrated. I didn't ever think we would be here because I put it away because I knew that the likelihood of this taking place was slim and none, right? And for him to finally be celebrated, they almost got me. They tried to take me out. When he turned that corner and DQ pointed to the we arrived violently, and it's a picture of him hitting a Ram ball carrier, and Daryl gets choked up. They tried to take me out. I ain't gonna front. They tried to get me. Daryl sees that picture and he's like, and he's trying to hold back the tears too. It was just, it's so nice to see a guy the stature of Daryl Green, who's one of the nicest people you could ever meet in your life, who's one of the most genuine guys you could ever meet in your life, right? Who does everything the right way, man of faith, right? Is big in the community, gives his time. I mean, just copious amounts of his time, so generous with his time, and is beloved by all. You won't find one person that says anything negative about Daryl Green. I couldn't be happier and it couldn't happen to a better person than Daryl Green, right? And then, what was crazy for me was listening to Joe Theismann talk about him having his number retired. I'm like, Joe, shouldn't nobody be wearing number 7, bro? Like, we don't necessarily have to retire 7, but like Dwayne coming in here and desecrating 7 was a travesty. And Dan Snyder should have stood up and said, nah, we're not doing that. Tell that young fella, because as a wise man used to say, because he's a jock sniffer or was a jock sniffer, he didn't have the balls to tell Dwayne Haskins no. You know how how much of a bitch you have to be to have a young 22, 21, 22-year-old come up to you, ask you, can I wear a number? And you look him in his face and say, hey, how about you go ask Joe, right? That's a bitch ass move because Joe ain't gonna tell him no. And he knew that. That to me speaks volumes as to the type of person that Dan Snyder was. And I just see Joe sitting there talking about Daryl Green and his number 28 being retired. And I'm thinking, Joe, you shouldn't have anybody else wearing 7 either, bro. The last time we had a quarterback in this franchise, it was you. We shouldn't be you. You were the last MVP player in franchise history. That was you. I think it was him. It could have been Mark Mosley. I don't want to misspeak there, right? But whatever the case may be, whether it was him or Mark Mosley, the fact that that's the last time we had a franchise quarterback in an MVP caliber non-kicker, his number should be retired too, or at least off limits. It doesn't have to necessarily be retired, but nobody else should be wearing it, right? Whatever. I digress. So then we transition to day one of the 2024 NFL draft. And, it's all about Jaden Daniels and the pick. And, DQ walks into their conference room and he sits down and he talks about what being at the top of the pile means. And he said at the top of the pile for what they look for in what is a commander, right? What that commander tag is all about. And we're starting to learn a little bit about this commander tag. And that, that shit gets me fired up because I'm one of the things I've talked about the most over the last probably 7 years, if you've been following me, is we don't have an identity. What do we stand for? What kind of players do we even attract here in Washington? Like, what are we drafting? What are some core principles and qualities that players must have to become a Washington football player? I couldn't tell you. I mean, we were just drafting random ass dudes. Oh, his parents were in the military. Let's draft him, right? Oh, we need a defensive tackle. Let's draft Fedarian Mathis. That makes a lot of sense. Like, there was no rhyme or reason to the shit that we were doing. We were just doing random ass shit, right? So, it's so refreshing to hear them talk about a commander tag, or these guys had gold commander stamps, right? Gold commander tags on them, right? So obviously Jaden Daniels had a gold tag, right? He had the commander tag and it was gold. And he said, at the top of the pile is competitiveness. That's the first trait you must have, is you got to be a badass competitor, in the words of DQ. And if you don't have that, then you don't have what it takes to be a commander. You got to stand for something or you'll fall for anything, right? So it's so good to finally hear them talking about things that you have to have in order, like prerequisites, requirements that you must have, or else you don't make the cut. Not any player shouldn't just be able to play for your team. There needs to be a standard set. You don't meet this bar, you can't play here. Joe Witt Jr. came here and immediately won points with me when he said, this ain't for everybody. Not everybody is going to fit in here, and that's okay. That's okay, but we not for everybody. You know how refreshing that was to hear after years of just allowing any and everybody to come play for our organization? Didn't matter, right? AP is a funny dude, right? We got to see a lot of his personality. I loved it. I think my biggest takeaway from this video, this particular episode of the Commander's Log, was AP's personality. Chef P was on full display. All right. He was cooking up crack, and I loved every second of it. Chef P was in his element. He was in his bag, right? So the first thing that I got a kick out of was he told them after, so what I'm learning about the process, we know that the draft is a TV show. Okay. I think we're learning more and more about that. because I heard Chef P say we gotta wait. They want us to wait like 5 minutes because I heard the Bears GM Ryan Poles say the same thing on the little promo video that they put out for the and the pick is in. He said they want us to wait 5 minutes. Like they already knew they was taking Caleb Williams. We already knew we were taking Jaden Daniels. But they want us to wait 5 minutes, right? So while they're waiting and killing time, he tells them, "Hey, when we announce this pick, right? When the pick, we got to start." Quote, "We got to do a lot of hugs and stuff." Close quote, right? I found that to be funny because when you're watching the draft at home, they cut to the feed at in the war room, and you see guys high-fiving and dapping each other up and hugging, bro hugs and all of that stuff. And it's funny to hear him say that because, like, if we don't see that, then we don't feel the genuine the excitement, right? It doesn't feel like genuine excitement. Like if you just are all in the war room and you're just talking amongst yourself and they catch you at the wrong time and we don't see the hugs and the high five, we like, damn, our war room dead, right? We talk about that shit all the time during the draft party, right? So it's just funny to hear him say that, right? Because to us as fans, that shit matters, right? In the grand scheme of things, it don't make a damn difference. But we need to see that shit. We need that energy, right? So it was funny hearing him say that. And then DQ adding on top of Chef P saying, "I'm going to take you all the way down to the ground on this one," right? When he's like, "I'm going to dap you up and I'm taking you all the way down to the ground." I just got a kick out of that, man. They have me weak. So, yeah, a lot of good vibes in the war room after that pick was made. And Jaden Daniels' journey, he talked about his journey, and of course they were going to spend a little bit more time on him than anybody else because he was our first pick. He is the tone setter. He is, if this thing is to turn around, it'll be because of Jaden Daniels, right? Like he's going to be a massive part of this resurgence if it is to take place, right? So they talked about his journey, him getting on the plane with his family and, him coming out, hugging the commissioner, getting a phone call, all of that stuff. So that was a part of that. So then you get to day number 2 of the 2024 NFL draft. And this was where I talked all season about how important day 2 was going to be. I said, day 1, obviously drafting the quarterback is going to be big. And look, as much as I want to, push the quarterback decision aside, we all know that everything hinges upon getting that right. But let's not lose sight of day 2 and the importance there, because we got 9 selections and 5 of them come in day number 2. So let's understand how important of a day 2 was going to be. And, day 2 has not been kind to us at all. Specifically the second round. It has been a house of horrors and an absolute disaster for this organization. Going back all the way to like probably 2008 is the first time we really kept tabs on just how bad the second round has been for this organization after those 3 second-round picks: Malcolm Kelly, Fred Davis, and Devin Thomas. And it started there, and it hasn't really stopped. I'm hoping that it's stopping with Sam Cosmi, right? But Darian Mathis isn't helping matters right now, right? We'll see. But at the end of the day, day 2 was really impactful. A lot of things happened in day 2, and I think most of my notes from the episode came from day number 2. So they talked a lot about the commander tag in day number 2, and we'll talk about that as we continue on. Chef P had another, and this is where he started to get spicy. He started to get a little spicy with his language and with his demeanor. He started to put that game face on, right? Because on day 1, you kind of knew what was happening. You work the phone, see if there's a chance for you to get back into the first round potentially, but that's going to require you to give up something, right? don't really think they were in the process of wanting to give stuff up. We're in that rebuilding phase or recalibration phase. And in that phase, while you want to acquire the best players possible, you also want to stack as many of those draft picks as you have and use them, right? And help build the foundation with really good, young, cheap football players. So you understand that the draft is the lifeline of any healthy organization. And so I didn't really see us trading back into the first round unless the price was absolutely right. And I told you it was going to take somebody falling down the draft board into that wheelhouse, into the mid-20s, late 30s, 20s, in order for Washington to jump back into the first round. It wasn't going to cost you as much at that point. But jumping up to 16 or 18, I thought it was going to cost too much, and it ultimately did, right? But as we learned in this episode, they thought about trading up to select Jerzan Newton, right? And they held their water, and he fell right into their lap. But they entertained the idea. You heard owner Josh Harris say, we thought about moving up, but we held our water, and he fell right into our lap. And Chef P was like, yeah, got a little dicey there, but our guy's sitting there, and they were entertaining trading back. But I remember, you remember my mock draft, and what I said in my mock draft. I said, look, if this guy is sitting there, you can't afford to pass this type of talent up. He has no business being at 36. And I know a lot of people out of sight, out of mind. He's injured right now, so you're not talking about him. You're talking about Luke McCaffrey. You're talking about Brandon Coleman. You're talking about Mikey Sainristil. You're talking about Ben Sinnott. You're talking about Jaden Daniels. Talking about Jordan McGee. You're talking about everybody else but Johnny Newton. But when it's all said and done, he's probably going to be one of the more impactful defensive players selected in this draft. When it's all said and done, he's that good. He and Mike Sainristil are going to be the two guys defensively that I'm going to look at and say, I expect massive things from you. In year one, there are going to be plays at various portions of this season that those guys are going to make where you're going to say, that's why he was a second-round pick. That's why he should have been a first-round pick in the case of Johnny Newton, right? So it's easy to not be thinking about him because of the surgery that he had to have on his foot. Trust me, when he gets out there, you're going to know. This won't be a Fedarian Mathis type situation where he's invisible and you don't even know he's on the field. You'll know when Johnny Newton hits the field. Trust me. So they couldn't pass it up, the opportunity. And you heard them, and Chef P called over Joe Witt Jr. and was like, hey, you want to get this guy? He's like, hell yeah. Like, are you kidding me? What kind of question is that? And Chef P said, get your calculator out. We've got a lot of effing teams calling, right? He told Rob, get your effing calculator out. And I finally got to put eyes on Rob Rogers, the capologist guy. Now, I think they replaced him since. A lot of those guys, it was funny watching this episode because a lot of the guys that were in that war room, they're no longer with the organization. They've replaced them already, right? Like Rob Rogers, I think they replaced him with the guy they got from Detroit, if I'm not mistaken. We saw, what's the bald-headed guy that was the head of player personnel, the one that was definitively like, hey, both Forbes and Gonzalez are on the board. I'm going Forbes, right? And we were all like, oh, smack the shit out of you, right? And he was so definitive with the shit, right? And Martin Mayhew's looking at him like, duh, yeah, of course I'm taking Forbes, right? And then we later found out Ron had Forbes, selected the day before. He was driving in, to the war room that morning, and he was like, hey, he's here. They had already made their goddamn mind up. A lot of those dudes aren't there anymore. I just was watching and saying, you're not there anymore. You're not on the staff anymore. You're no longer with the organization. You watch out. You ain't with the organization no more. So it's crazy seeing some of these guys. But anyway, he said after they, placed the call with Johnny Newton, Chef P turns and he says, Stokes, thank you, Mr. Ron B. Stokes. Eric Stokes was the guy that I was looking at. I was like, you ain't even here no more, bro. And good riddance too, right? So, what was nice was he turned. This was the first time he would do it, the first of many. He turned to the entire room and I'm talking about Adam Peters, and he says, "Well, guys, we got a badass. We got a bad mother." I said, Adam, how could you? I didn't know you could do that. And at that point, you can see he was in his bag, right? He was in his bag. He said, we got a lot of effing teams calling. And I said, okay. Because all we've seen is the nice, buttoned up, clean Adam, which you're supposed to, right? I mean, he's not going to go out there dropping F-bombs. And, DQ is a little bit more, upfront with his. He's like, look, I swear, that's me. That's who I am. It is what it is. You're going to catch every now and again, you're going to catch an F-bomb. You might catch a shit. You're going to get a lot of dams. You're going to get a lot of asses. So just be ready, right? As a coach, a wise coach used to say to me, son, be ready. So with AP, you're not getting that, right? Chef P is going to keep it clean as he should. He's a GM. He should keep it clean. But boy, we got to see a lot from him. He said, guys, we got Johnny effing Newton, right? He was ecstatic about it. I was too. I ain't even on front. Then a conversation between Joe Witt Jr. and DQ was captured where, Joe Witt Jr. was like, I can't believe he found us. And Dan Quinn's like, I know, this is crazy. This guy fits everything that we want to do, right? Then Joe Witt Jr. is like, yeah, everything. He can play up and down the line. Like, we can do so much with this dude. So you could tell everybody was really excited about getting Johnny Newton. Then we got to the trade, and I was so anxious to see how this went down. And I'm so glad they captured this, because Howie Roseman is a piece of work. You dirty mother. All right. He was trying to get us, right? This is how you know we got a G for a GM, right? Because Adam won't go on for that shit. Chef P was in his element, man. So Howie called initially, and he tried to fleece us. And what you got to understand, so I got a buddy who used to be a claims agent. And when you're a claims agent, you deal with negotiation. And so he used to tell me all about the negotiation process and how it works and how companies work. Like, they give you an allotment of money and they send you out to try to handle the claim, right? And, most people who ain't never seen money before, they'll jump at the first offer that you make. So you don't make an extremely high offer to them. You lowball them first. And if they, aren't aware of what you're doing and they haven't seen real money, they might be in a tough spot right now financially. They'll take it. Great, right? But if you have the power, and you got to understand what your position is. If you're in a position of power, you never settle, right? And so I love the fact that Chef P was like, wait a minute. No. He wants to do a deal with us, but we're losing a pick. Nah, I'm not okay with that. So he calls him back and he's like, nah, bro, you give us 161 and you got a deal. And Howie's like, wait, I'm used to fleecing people. No. You weren't supposed to call back and demand an extra pick to make it a fair deal. That's not what we do. We get over on people. And Adam's like, nah, not happening, bro. Look, I'm cool at 40. I'll take a player here at 40. You not hurting me, bro. I don't have to move back. Okay. Understand that I still have 4 more picks today. I'm straight regardless. I got 40. I got 67. I got 78 and I got 100. I don't need your picks, bro. Okay? You need me. I don't need you. So if you want to do the deal, I need 161. Boop. Right? And so Adam's like, you believe this guy? he's trying to sell us short, right? So he calls back and he's like, all right, bet. So Howie calls back and is like, all right, y'all got 2 5th rounders. Let me get the better of the 2 5th rounders. And he's like, no, bro. You get in the back end of the 2 5th rounders. And so Howie's like, I gotta see. And Adam's like, all right, bet. So he hangs up and Josh Harris is like, is he going to do the deal? He's like, yeah, he going to do the deal. But like, he's trying to sweat me for the other 5th rounder, the good 5th rounder, right? No, bro. You're not getting that 5th rounder up off me. You getting the back end 5th rounder. So he calls back again. And then Howie's trying to change up the pick. Like 210. And he's like, bro, when did I ever say 210? Okay. It's always been 161. What are you talking? Hey, Howie, stop playing on my line, bro. Stop playing on my line, bro. What we doing right now? Hey, when you serious, hit me. Boop. And sure enough, that phone rang about 2 seconds later. Howie's like, all right, man, you got us. All right. Yeah. And he said, we good? Yeah, we good, man. Boy, our GM is a G, right? That whole situation, I shudder to think at how that would have gone down if that was Martin Mayhew. He probably would have got us with the first deal where we didn't get the extra pick on the back end of that. We probably would have lost a pick. And, and Chef P was like, bro, I'm not comfortable losing a pick. I know we ended up getting 2 seconds, but we gave him one of our thirds. I'm not comfortable, losing one of my day 3 picks. I'm going to need you to come up off one of them day 3 things, bro. You got about 20 picks, so it's not hurting you. So I ain't trying to hear that shit you talking about because the Eagles traded back like 9 times in the draft. I know you good for it, bro. Let me get one of them things. Now, they hadn't traded back 9 times yet, but that ain't our concern. We need to be fairly compensated here. He tried to finesse the shit out of him. And Chef P was like, bro, come on now. And he said, man, he picked up the phone. He said, Howie, you a pain in the ass. You know that? Like, bro, why are you trying me on my line right now? I don't have time for these games, right? Are you trying to do the deal or not? Because I'll make a pick at 40. What you trying to do? I love it, man. It was awesome. That was my favorite part of the video, and I was so looking forward to that. I think I talked about that maybe like 2 or 3 weeks ago when we were talking about a potential new episode of Commander's Log, and I said I want to see what happened with the whole how the Howie pick came into focus, and now seeing how I told you Howie's a dangerous man. If you're doing a deal with him, you got to be careful, right? He's a little shyster. You got to watch Howie, man, because he'll get over on your ass if you ain't careful. Clearly, we got a GM that dots every I, crosses every T, and I love it, man. Chef P is funny as hell, too, right? So he called, I know teams do. I thought teams did that. I didn't know this. I thought they might have done things like this, but if I'm on the other end, like, don't call me to ask me who I'm picking. Like, I'm too busy right now. Got a lot of shit going on. I got people calling trying to see if I want to trade. I'm trying to figure out which player on my board is the best selection for us. We need to call that guy if we are making a selection, get his number so we can get him on the line. There's a lot going on. Don't call me to ask me who the hell I'm picking. Like, that's and if you are going to call, like, you know how DQ is answering like the house line, right? And if you really want some shit to go down, you hit me on my cell, right? If you got some frivolous conversations that are taking, you hit us on our landline. Hit us on the work phone, right? AP looked like he was hitting somebody on a cellular, right? Like he was calling a GM like, hey, who y'all taking? Don't call me and ask me that, right? But he was like, who? What? And they were sweat like they wanted, like soon as they traded back, DQ immediately said, man, I want that Mike sandwich still from Michigan. Like they were still in the 30s. And this man was talking about Mikey sandwich still. So DQ was like sweating bullets. And they were on pins and needles. Like, man, I hope this guy gets to us. I hope this guy gets to us. I hope this guy gets to us. And AP calls up Cincinnati's GM, Tobin. I believe his name is Tobin. And the phone rings, the landline rings, and DQ picks that up. So he has no idea what's going on over here. So Adam is on the phone. He's talking. And he's like, y'all taking the guy from Michigan? All right, man. So he's all like kind of distraught, like, damn, they got our guy. So, you know, you can tell this was Josh Harris's first, you know, this was his first draft, right? So he's sitting there like, who are they taking? And he's like, they're taking the guy from Michigan. He's like, it's a defensive tackle. He's like, oh, don't do that to me. Don't get me like that. I think it was Josh Harris who he got like that. It might have been one of the coordinators or somebody like that. So then DQ hangs up the phone. And AP was like, yo, they got me like that. When he said the guy from Michigan, I'm thinking, oh, shit, they got Mike. And it turned out to be Jenkins, Chris Jenkins Jr., the defensive tackle. So DQ gets off the phone. He says, who they taking? And he says, yeah, they taking a kid from Michigan. And Dan was like, bro, are you serious? He's like, yeah, the defensive tackle. He said, oh, man, don't do that shit to me, bro. Are you crazy? You trying to give me a heart attack? He said, hey, they got me like that too, right? They was having fun in there, man. It was Lance Newmark. That's right. It was Lance Newmark that he got first, right? Lance, he got Lance first. He turned to Lance and he said, yeah, they taking the kid from Michigan. And Lance is like, oh, man. And he's like, yeah, the defensive tackle. He's like, oh, you got me. Don't do that to me. And DQ was really like, you could tell his heart dropped. You could tell when somebody's heart dropped. His shit dropped. They did when he got the news that it was Jenkins. He said, they're taking Jenkins? He's like, yeah. He's like, oh, man, don't do me like that. So they were all stoked that they got Mikey Sandwich still. I think he might have been the guy that they were probably the most excited. I told you in the moment when the draft was happening, he was one of the guys I was most excited about getting, right? I told you I was a massive Mikey Sandwich still fan. After the national championship game, if you recall, some of y'all watched that video. I did a quick little video after that national championship game when Michigan won, and I told you, man, I love me some Mikey Sandwich still. I just didn't think we would get him. I didn't think we would be in the market because of Quan Martin. I didn't think we'd be in the market for him, right? So I was shocked that we ended up getting him. And this was another great, to me, another seminal moment of the video. So this is Chef P talking here. Quote, and he stood up and it was like he was giving I have a dream speech. Everybody had gathered around and he stood up. And, you know, the crazy part was, bro, we had another pick in 2 selections, right? When we traded back with Philadelphia, we got 50 and I believe 50 and 52, right? If it wasn't 50 and 52, it was 50 and 53. So we had another selection, but he stood up, everybody gathered around, and he said, quote, 3 guys, 3 gold tags, 3 guys that are effing badasses. We only gave out 20 of those. He's speaking of those gold tags. And we're 3 for 3 right now. Let's keep it going. So those first 3 picks, super impactful. And then yeah, so y'all said 53. I knew it was 52 or 53. It was like literally 2 or 3 picks later, right? It was like boom, boom. So DQ Caps, he said this at least 4 times. He said, ever since we left that pro day, I really wanted to coach that kid. DQ said that like 5 times. I think that he was most excited about getting Samus there. They were very nervous. You could tell they weren't sure if he was going to get to them. Like, I don't know if he was going to be the pick at 40 if they would have stayed there. They made it seem like it was, right? Like, because I remember very vividly Josh Harris saying, you know, we traded back and we weren't sure and we still got our guy, right? So I think they were planning on taking Mikey Sainz still at 40 to trade back and get him at 50. That's a massive dub if that was the case. I can't tell you if they were going to do that or not. It sounded like they were going to do that, right? The next bullet I put down in my notes was Cliff Kingsbury is too damn cool for me. He's too effing cool for me. You know, he comes over in his 3-piece, right? And you know he's got that smooth jazz 105.3 Kiss FM, you know, voice, right? You know, that midnight quiet storm DJ voice. And they're like, hey, because they're thinking about drafting Ben Sinnott, right? Or Sinnott, excuse me. And see, they were calling him Sinnott and messing me up again. Now they got me relapsing over here. I was doing really good with the Sinnott. And so they were thinking about drafting Ben Sinnott. And they called up because every time they're thinking about drafting a guy on one side of the ball or the other, they always try to get input from the coach. I wonder if a coach is like, I don't really want that dude, but would they really speak up and say, nah, man, I don't really like that dude? Like, of course they're gonna be like, yeah, draft him. Like, what else are they supposed to say? You know what I mean? I feel like Kanye, like, he's like, I really wasn't looking for the, you know, serious introspective or, you know, type of Jay-Z. I was really just looking for, you know, regular Jay-Z. But, you know, he asked me, what, you know, what I thought, man, shit was dope. What I'm supposed to say? I was on the train, right? Like, what am I supposed to say, bro? I really would like you to take the receiver here. They're going to just come over and agree with you because that's what you do in the draft war room, right? So I'd really like to know if a coach has ever been like, I don't really like that guy. I was really thinking more along the lines of him right there, right? But they call over, you know, Cliff Kingsbury and ask him about Ben Sinnott. And he's like, yeah. I mean, what do you guys think? Yeah. Like, we could use him a lot of different ways, you know? Like, Cliff is just too effing cool for me, right? You know, like, I remember that one year, the Rams, they rent out a house and they draft, like, Cliff was there with them. Or I think matter of fact, he did that too one year because he was kicking up, feet up, chilling at a little beach house or whatever. Or it might have been his house. I remember everybody was going crazy over Cliff Kingsbury's setup because it was dope. And he just strikes me as one of those dudes. Like, Cliff just be chilling, man. Like, I don't know, man. Cliff he's built different. I can tell you that right now. He's definitely built different. If I was going out to the club, I'm definitely gonna have Cliff as my right-hand man. He's definitely a wingman. Right? Hey, you cool with me. You stand over here on my left, bro. Right? So on Ben Sinnott, this is what Chef P said. We think this guy can be really, really, really good. He can do a lot of different things. He's tough as shit, and he plays the way we want him to play. This is our 4th commander out of 4, closed quote. So they gave out 20 gold tags, and 4 of those guys were selected. I don't know if any of the other guys received gold tags. I doubt it. But to hit on, 4 of those guys with your first 4 picks speaks volumes, right? And, I said this about Ben Sinnott. That man was sitting in his living room with some New Balances on, right? Trust me when I tell you, if a man is sitting in his living room with New Balances on his feet, he finna get in somebody's ass, okay? It's not a game. He's getting it out the mud if he's wearing New Balances in his living room. I said, oh, yeah, he can play for us. He's a dog for real. Then you get to Brandon Coleman and Luke McCaffrey. Coleman got selected, and he seemed like he was pretty jacked up, pretty fired up about getting the call. And Luke McCaffrey, same deal. He's just one of those guys. I think it's almost impossible not to like Luke McCaffrey. His mindset comes from a football family. He gets it. And then Chef P said, I've missed having the McCaffreys around, right? So I thought that was pretty dope. Him getting a call, his brother Christian being there. And I think Luke's going to be a really good football player, man. I've already said that, though. And I think you guys already know how I feel about Luke. So that was day number 2. It was a lot in day 2, as you could imagine. Day 3 of the draft, Joe Witt Jr., he was stoked for Dominic Hampton. That was his guy. He was way high on my board. Like, he really liked Dominic. And I told you, if they liked Jeremy Chinn, then you were going to like Dominic Hampton because they're literally the same player. So I think Joe Witt Jr. really liked Jeremy Chinn. So if you like Chinn, you're going to like Hampton, which is why I mocked him, right? It just made too much sense. They were so hyped for Javonte Jean-Baptiste. I deliberately stayed away from all of the phone calls because I know a lot of y'all had already seen these phone calls and how these draft picks responded to the call and things of that nature. I used to always eat that stuff up immediately. I was like, but if I know they're going to show it to me again on this commander's log, I want to watch it for the first time. So I intentionally stayed away. So a lot of these calls, this was my first time hearing them. And he was one of the guys that really got choked up, right? I don't think he thought he was going to get drafted. Those are the ones that, remember the year before, it was Andre Jones Jr. who was crying and boo-hooing and really excited. Because when you get to the 7th round and you hope you're getting drafted and you get to the 7th round and it starts to set in, I might not hear my name called, right? Like, you almost better off not getting drafted, to be honest with you. But who doesn't, like, you work this hard, who doesn't want to hear their name called? Who doesn't want to be a draft pick? You want your name to show up on TV. You want them to announce your name so you and your family can celebrate, so you can realize that all of this work I put in has come full circle, and now this is the moment we get to celebrate it. So when you get that call, even though if you're the 221st pick or whatever, you get that call, it's life-changing. And so, the DQ was hitting the table, and not DQ, AP was hitting the table, and DQ was clapping it up, and those guys were really excited for Jean-Baptiste. It was a pretty cool moment. I enjoyed that phone call. You could tell they were really excited for the kid. So then it transitioned from the draft to rookie minis, and we got another quote to add. So we already had 2 badass quotes that, to me, are like, I'm gonna put these shits on shirts eventually. If they don't do it, I'm gonna do it. So we already had anybody, anywhere, anytime, and I already said that needs to be the name of an episode. of one of these Commanders logs. Like, they're not doing themselves justice if they don't name one of these episodes. Anybody, anywhere, anytime. That's an easy, no-brainer, no think, make it happen, right? We also have the only fight that matters is the one that we are in. We also got that from the second episode as well. So those were the two quotes that we took from that one and say, all right, we working with some shit now. We cooking with some gasoline. Then they added a new quote to the mix. Sit with warriors. The conversation is different. That one hit home for me. I was like, damn, that's some profound shit. Who said that? You know, I was looking for, like, did they have a little dash at the bottom with the person that said the quote? Nah, like that one's different. And I was, you know, it made me think of the late, great Jerry West, right? He's one of those dudes, like, his mind is built like Michael Jordan's, like hyper competitive, you know, the kind of guy that if you're not on his team, you're his sworn enemy. Like, we could be best friends, but we ain't friends right now. I'm finna cook your ass. And, you know, Jerry West had that mindset. You don't become the logo of the NBA by accident. And you got to be a bad mofo to be called the logo, right? To have the silhouette of you dribbling the basketball be the logo for the league. You got to be a dog. He's like, nah, everybody come around now. And these young guys that get drafted, they, you know, a lot of these GMs and draft analysts, they call these young guys that are tough dogs, right? Dogs. He said, you know, I laugh because he's like, I wasn't a dog. I was a wolf. He said, I ate dogs. I said, damn. But when you sit with warriors, the conversation is different. That's why Michael Jordan was like, yo, he was like a kindred spirit. He said, I used to always want to play against Jerry West after, you know, talking to him as many times as I did throughout my career. I always wanted, then he said, after talking to him and admiring him for so long, I realized I didn't want to play against him. I wanted him to be my teammate. Like, that's the biggest adulation you can get from Michael Jordan. He didn't say that about a lot of people. But Jerry West was that dude. But again, when you sit with warriors, the conversation is different. That one hit me. Like, I was like, damn, that's a good one, right? So obviously you go through rookie minis and you hear the young guys talking about the environment that DQ and Chef P created and how they feel like they're at home and they're so glad they were drafted. Like, I get it. That's what they're supposed to say, right? Look, who's going to be like, man, I wish I would have been drafted by another team. Nobody's going to say that. But you get a real genuine sense that they're excited about being here. Like, I think Jaden Daniels, remember, we were questioning. Like, I told you, I was going back in the archives and I looked at one of my videos and it was questioning whether he even wanted to be here, right? Remember the whole agent situation and Jaden Daniels not being happy about Top Golf, and we were overanalyzing all of that shit. And Jaden himself even sat out when they were talking about him being selected in the first round. He said, I wasn't sure about Washington. You know, they had a pretty good poker face. I wasn't sure. I knew the visit went well, but I didn't know if they really was feeling me or not. And they didn't, you know, they did a really good job of keeping all of that stuff in house, which they did. And they have been doing that all offseason. We had no idea about nothing, right? You know, my running joke all offseason was, bro, they signed Michael Davis and nobody knew about it until the man showed up in front of a camera on Zoom doing his introductory press conference, addressing the media. Like, when does that ever happen? It doesn't. That's how good this organization was at keeping shit a secret. And I love Lance Newmark. He was trying his hardest to keep stuff under wraps in terms of, like, he knew there was a mic in there and he was whispering, but they still put the little closed caption at the bottom so we would hear what he was saying. He was like, I can't believe he fell that far. He's a really good player. We're like, hey, Lance, we can still hear you, buddy. And even if we can't, they're going to make sure we know what you said. So you don't need to whisper, right? We can still hear you, buddy. But That's Lance, man. Lance is going to try to keep it up. So we just got a bunch of dudes who's going to make sure that shit stays in-house. But I just went off on a tangent. Back to the players. You can tell Jaden Daniels is like, I'm so glad. Another one of these, everything happens for a reason. Yeah, he wanted to go to Vegas. That's not a secret. Everybody knows. Antonio Pierce was his guy. He would have loved to have found a way to Vegas. I bet you if you would have given him truth serum before the draft, he would have said, yeah, I want to go to the Vegas Raiders. And he wouldn't have been wrong. He's a young man. He wants to go somewhere. He would have been staying on the left coast, which is all he's known his entire life for the most part until he went to LSU. But to go back out on the left coast would have probably been good for him. And to have a coach that knows him intimately going back to his ASU days, that would have been phenomenal for him. But I bet you if you asked him now and if you gave him that same truth serum and you asked him, aren't you glad you have been drafted by it? I bet you he'd tell you, man, I couldn't envision myself being somewhere else because of the environment created by AP and DQ. And that's such a change from, past years, obviously. You hear guys like Luke McCaffrey talk about being here and Brandon Coleman talk about being here. And Mike Singler still, all he talks about is competing. That's it. You could tell that was a stickler at Michigan with all the dudes they had drafted and with Jim Harbaugh being there and all Jim Harbaugh talks about is competing. You could tell that was a constant conversation and discussion within that building because all Mikey Singler still talks about is competing. That's it. That's all that young man talks about. And so Jordan McGee talked about being in the same room with Bobby Wagner. And he's like, bro, I can't believe that I got a first ballot Hall of Famer in Bobby Wagner as my teammate, that I can literally pick this man's brain and talk to him every single day. It's like, that's one of those, I got to pinch myself moments. I can't believe what I'm seeing. Like, is this really real? Is this true? Like this is my teammate. And I'm telling you, McGee is the future of the middle linebacker position for us. And I got no doubts. Like, this is what Adam Peters does. Like that fifth round, we talked about this already. Dre Greenlaw was a 5th round pick. Fred Warner was I want to say he was a 3rd round pick, 3rd or 4th round pick. Azeez Al-Shire was undrafted. Like, this is what he does. He identifies linebackers. We got us one, man. I'm telling y'all, Jordan McGee is up next. Then they finished the show out with the Navy SEAL training and the message. Shout out to my guy, Frank McLaughlin, for the suggestion of the terminal list, because I knew exactly what was going on because I watched the terminal list. And one of the things they did in that movie or that show, rather, that series, was the SEALs training was they had them lifting those logs together. And spoiler alert, look, the show's been out for a couple years now. If you haven't watched it, shame on you. But how he ends up killing one of the dudes that betrayed him was he tied him to one of those logs. And, obviously you ain't lifting that shit by yourself. That's a team exercise. It's a team building exercise because everybody has to be on one accord. If somebody doesn't carry their weight, it's really an exercise in everybody carrying their weight, right? Because if one guy doesn't carry his weight, everybody suffers. That's what that exercise is supposed to demonstrate. So he tied the guy to the tree trunk and on that log, and pretty much that's how he killed him. He drowned him, right? Like doing that. But when I saw the photos, we've all seen the photos on social media of them doing that. I thought it was a pretty cool exercise. The teams in the offseason always try to find ways, creative ways to get messages across to their team. And, having Navy SEALs is one of the ones that I see very often and hear about all the time. But at the end of the day, I think that went over well, and this has been a great process thus far, and this was a great episode. And I know we say this all the time, but I know I mean it this time. That doesn't really, I don't think that holds a lot of weight now, right? You can't say this every time after an episode and then say, but I mean it this time though, and it's supposed to stick. But I think this was the best episode yet. Now, this one was 50 minutes. So I think this one warrants the best episode. And just because it's longer doesn't mean it's actually better. But in this particular instance, I think the shoe fits here. Like, this was the best episode yet. But we've said that before, right? This is not the first time we've said, yo, this was the best episode yet. And we've been hyped. We did that last year with Sam Howell. I know I did. But it's different this year because ownership is fully taken over. We have a real general manager. We have a real head coach. And we have a real operation and adults in the building. Real, functional, fully functional adults, grown-ups running the show. We have not had that at any point over the last 2 decades. So, yeah, this is phenomenal. Feels good. It feels good. Yeah, it feels good. Anyway, I digress. Let's get to the comment section. What an episode, man. That has rewatch value. I think there's only been maybe 1 or 2 episodes that I've watched over more than once. I know the one where Emmanuel Forbes got drafted. I watched that episode twice. In the DQ first episode, this season 3, episode 1, I watched that one like 3 times. So this has rewatch value for me. I can see myself watching this one 2 or 3 more times, especially if they don't give us anything for a little while here. Remember, and the pick is out right now on Roku television or whatever that Roku app is. I don't know if they're going to release it at a specific time, but it is 6/14 and it does come out today. So if you want to watch, if you want some more Commanders draft content, you have a chance to get some more. I'm synced up. I think I'm gonna watch it this weekend because I want to talk about it on the podcast, but I kind of want to save it. This is gonna be a long 5 or 6 weeks, bro, without any real conversation. Like, we're gonna have to, like, this is the time where I start hyping shit up because I'm excited now. Aren't you excited? Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained? Like, aren't you excited now? Like, yeah. You know, if you're a Kool-Aid drinker, this is the time where you get a little tipsy. You start shoveling down cups. You got nothing to do. You know, the most trouble you get into is when you got nothing to do. Right? When you stay busy, you're able to distract yourself, you stay out of trouble. You get into the most trouble when you don't have shit to do. This is when you can get drunk, right here. This is the part where I usually get drunk, high off my own supply right now. Not going to allow that to happen this year. I'm very cognizant of how I'm moving this off season, but I am excited. I will not lie. So let's get to the comment section, see what y'all have to say and get out of here. Video channel. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Appreciate you getting the night kicked off. Who writes, AP standing on business for 161. Absolutely. Abso-freaking-lutely. He was not having it. Howie and anyone else ain't getting over on his front office. That was probably the most refreshing part of all of this, was him like, bro, come on now. Don't play with me. All right, I'm not the one. All right. And they, you know, they know each other, right? They got a relationship. So he's like, bro, Try that shit on somebody else. Not me. I know your games. I know your tricks. I'm not the one. You know, you call me with an offer that sounds too good to be true, but then when I sit down and I analyze, hey, you shorted me a pick, bro. It felt like Smokey counting the money to Big Worm, right? 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, 120. He's like, mother, that ain't nothing but, and he's like, oh man, like, bro, don't play with me. All right. Those ain't all my picks. So he was like, nah, I need 161, bro. Standing on business, 10 toes down. I need 161 or we don't have a deal. And how we tried to play hardball. Let me call you back. Yeah, go ahead. Take all the time you need. Take all the time you need. How we call back. Hey, what about that other 5th round pick? Y'all got 2 of them. What about, bro? Listen here. Okay, we already discussed the 5th rounders. You're not getting our first 5th rounder. Okay, you're getting the second of the 2 5th rounders, the lower of the 2. Okay, so let's remove that from the conversation because you're not getting that. Focus. I need 161, bro. Okay, that's your focus right now. I need 161. Do we have a deal? Hey, let me hit you back. All right, cool. So then he calls back. You said 210, right? Bro, stop playing on my line, man. Like, why are you playing with me right now? Bro, 161 or don't call back. All right. Then I love it, man. Chef P was like, bro, why he acting like this ain't what I do? Come on now. AJ Meehan, been a member for 23 months. Almost at that 2-year mark. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, no law for super friends. Did you see him in the promo? Did you even have to ask? I didn't forget to add him into the promo. I mean, you just got to tune in Monday if you want to find out what happened. All right? Or Tuesday, excuse me. Swaggy P, thank you for the super chat. And I didn't mean to be an asshole, right? I didn't mean to be a dick about it, but I mean, I tell my kids all the time, why are you asking me? Well, I tell my wife this, not my kids. Don't ask me retardville USA questions. Like, that's self-explanatory right there. You didn't even have to ask me that. You knew the answer to that, right? Swaggy P, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Who writes, love the new episode of Commander's Log, seeing more behind the scenes of the draft and rookie minicamp. Also glad the Super Friends are back. So am I, man. You know, sometimes we have egos and they get in the way of something that has a chance to be special. And I'm glad we were all able to put our egos aside for the betterment of the group, understanding that what we had, you know, was something special. And I honestly, us coming back, we owe it to y'all as viewers. Y'all pressed us. Y'all showed us how much y'all cared about the Super Friends. And your persistence, even though I kept telling y'all, I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen. It was y'all persistence that kind of prompted us to come sit down at the table and have, you know, some discussions. So y'all should pat yourself on the back. JLG, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. JLG writes, kind of off topic, but have you heard anything about Chigozie Anuzium since we drafted him? Will he make the team? So we didn't draft him. We signed him as a priority free agent. And no, we haven't heard anything about him, but you shouldn't be alarmed by that. He is an undrafted rookie. So you don't really hear a lot about those kind of guys this time, especially when you drafted a first-round quarterback that's going to dominate a lot of the topic of conversation. Everything's new around here. So guys like Chigozie Anuzium get a little bit of pub when you've got a kind of a static situation. Like in Kansas City, he'd probably, hey, what about this young fella we see out here? Like, yeah, it ain't a lot of shit going on in Kansas City. So yeah, you would talk about an undrafted guy, but with all the change in Washington, it's so many different topics to talk about. The last thing anybody's thinking about is an undrafted guy. Where they're going to make noise is in training camp. If they plan on making the roster or making it tough, DQ talked about some tough decisions having to be made. Guys like Chigozie Anuzium, he's going to have to make it tough by going out and making plays, being, a really good special teams player, and, giving them something to think about on the back end of that. There is a roster spot, to me, at the back end of the cornerback position. There's probably one spot available. You think about the cornerback position. There's Forbes. There, I'm going to call Mikey Sainer still a nickel corner, right? But he's corner safety. Yeah, they drafted him to be a nickel. So I'm going to call him a nickel. So you got Forbes, you got Mike Davis, you got Mikey Sainer still, and you got Benjamin St. Juste. That's 4 guys that are definitely on this roster. After that, it's anybody's guess. I think they're going to keep 5 corners, and then they're probably going to keep 1 or 2 guys on the practice squad at the cornerback position. So I think there's a spot available. Somebody's got to jump up and capture that spot. So we'll see. And it could be Chigozie Anuzium. We'll see what happens, right? Christopher McLaughlin, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy, Chris, once again, thank you for the generosity and your support. Can't thank you enough for all that you do for the Louie T Network. My guy, Chris, writes, hey, Lou. What's up, Chris? Hope all is well with you and the fam. Likewise, as always. Says 3 questions. 1 and 2. Where do you think Jaden Daniels is now percentage-wise, knowing the playbook, and how long will it take him to instinctively be able to run this offense, and why? And 3, thoughts on Trevor Lawrence 5 for 275. Millie. So as far as Jaden Daniels percentage-wise, knowing the playbook, hard to say where he is. My guess would be, though, he's somewhere in that 70 range, right? He's really comfortable, but he doesn't know it front and back. You can't know everything at this point 100%. Like, you talk to anybody, it usually isn't until year 2 where you're like fully comfortable with a playbook, the terminology, where everybody is, and now you don't even have to think. Like, he's so smart and he's put in all of this work. He's ahead of schedule, but he's still got a ways to go, as he mentioned himself. So I'd say somewhere in that 60% range. He's, which is, again, ahead of schedule. You would expect a young guy to probably be somewhere in that 40 range right now. But I think he's 60 to 70% digest in terms of digesting the playbook. So, and you say, how long would it take him to? I think 2 years. Like next year, that's why I think it. On one hand, the Eagles could be tough, to deal with, but it's not like they got an offensive coordinator that we never seen anything from, right? The problem in Philadelphia is they keep changing coordinators. It's hard to establish continuity when you're constantly changing things. Like Jalen Hurts, this will be his 4th coordinator in 5 years. It's crazy, right? It's hard to really get comfortable when you're constantly having change. I think this time next year, assuming Cliff Kingsbury is still here, and I have no doubts, no reason to believe that he won't be, I think Jaden Daniels will be a hell of a lot more comfortable, to the point where he can be a lot more instinctive with his play under center. But, everything's going to be a new experience for him this year for the most part, dealing with the NFL and adjusting to everything that comes with it. So thoughts on Trevor Lawrence, 5 for 275. We talked about that. I think you were one of the ones that asked me about, did I think he would get that deal? And I wasn't sure if Jacksonville was ready to commit. I knew that they felt good about him, and I thought he gutted it out last year. Obviously, he didn't play well enough to help them make the playoffs. They jumped out to an early lead in that division. It was their division to lose, and they lost it. And a lot of it fell on the shoulders of Trevor Lawrence. But he also was dealing with a ton of injuries. He wasn't right. But I think the jury's still out. But to me, if you think you got your guy, you go ahead and pay him, because it's not going to get any cheaper, right? It ain't going to get cheaper. If you wait and you decide, let's just make sure he's good this year, and then he goes out and, replicates what he did in his second season when they win the division, win a playoff game. Well, today's price ain't tomorrow's price, right? The price of the contract has gone up. So you're in a much better position if you get it done now. And it's going to look like a steal this time next year when 3 or 4 more quarterbacks have been paid. And this deal looks like, chump change compared to somebody, getting over $300 million or whatever. So, yeah, it's a lot of money, but it won't be in 2 years from now. So get it done now. You wait till this offseason and you'll be paying that high premium. So they did what they felt like was the right thing to do for them. I think he's the right quarterback. I think he's a good quarterback. But, he did have some injuries and he did struggle and he did regress a little bit last year. But I still think he's the right man for the job. So they did what they felt like they needed to do. Christopher McLaughlin, my guy, Chris, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. My guy, Chris, writes, hey, Lou, biggest takeaway from the episode besides the players drafted is Adam Peters' personality. Yeah, that was my biggest takeaway. I definitely wholeheartedly agree. He says he's sociable, collaborative, but decisive and firm when needed. Question, what are your expectations for Michael Davis this season and why? I've been on record multiple times as saying I think he's going to be this year what Ronald Darby was in 2020. When we signed him, I said that day, and I've been adamant about that. He's going to be very good in this defensive scheme under Joe Witt Jr. and Dan Quinn. He's going to play well. He did not play well last year. A lot of people, and nobody in the chart outside of Khalil Mack and the rookie out of USC, Thule, right? Nobody else played well on that defense outside of those two guys for the most part. Everybody struggled. So I think he's going to bounce back in a major way. He was awesome in 2022. So I'm telling you, Michael Davis is due for a big year. I think he's going to be outstanding. And I think he's going to be what Ronald Darby was for us in 2020, where he was lights out. You could argue Ronald Darby was our most consistent and best corner that year, despite having Kendall Fuller opposite of him. You could argue Darby was the better of the two corners that year. So I think he's going to be that good. And you ask me why? Because he got all the traits that they look for. He's tall, he's long, pause. He's got athleticism. He looks back for the ball. There's a lot that he brings to the table. He's a veteran. He understands, he's been in the league long enough, so he understands, down and distance. He understands a lot of it. He can tackle. There's a lot that he brings to the table. And so I think he's going to play well. I really, truly do. I really, truly do. I agree with every single word of what you said about Adam Peters. He's sociable. You can see that he gets along with everybody and can talk to anybody. He's collaborative. Every time he was making a pick, hey, let me call over Cliff or let me call over Joe Witt Jr. and get their input on this to make sure that this is a guy that they want, right? But he's decisive and firm when there's something there that he feels like this is a must. Like this can't get done unless we have this, or like this is the guy we got to get right here. Like this is the guy, right? Then he's firm and he's decisive. You love to see it. Ben Haniger, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Ben, thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Ben writes, before we finally move forward into the future, we need to see 81 retired. The football gods demand it. I don't even know why that hasn't happened. If you're in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, you should be in our Ring of Fame. I don't understand what the holdup is. Arthur Monk should have been retired a long time ago. I don't think anybody has worn 81 in these parts in some time now. I can't remember the last time I saw an 81 on the field for the Commanders or the Redskins for that matter. So I think there have been numbers that have been understood that nobody wears, right? 7 used to be one of those numbers. 81 was another one of those numbers. You just stay away from those numbers. But why even have that be an option? Just take that number away. You know, you don't want to take away too many numbers, but with the way the NFL is extending these rules and making it so you can wear all these different jersey numbers and zeros now into the mix, you can look, you only got 53 guys on the roster. I get it. It becomes a bit of a hassle during this time of the year when there are 90 guys, but it's going to be a hassle regardless, whether you have retired numbers or not. You got 90 guys. It's going to be hard to have everybody have a jersey. You're going to have overlapping numbers regardless. Certain numbers shouldn't be allowed to be worn. And that's another one of the numbers, right? Anyway, I agree. I agree wholeheartedly with you, Ben. Rob Williams, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Rob writes, we keep drafting like this. Hashtag Super Bowl coming. We'll see, right? Got to see these guys on the field. I feel really confident about the guys that they selected, but we got to see it play itself out on the field. You know, we got to see what Jaden Daniels does. We got to see what Johnny Newton provides us with. Mike Singh was still. We got to see what Ben Sinnott is. You know, Brandon Coleman and Luke McCaffrey and you know, Jordan McGee and all of these guys, right? Like, you feel really good about Dominic Hampton and what he could potentially be down the road. But we got to see, right? It's easy to get caught up in, you know, we do it every year, off-season hype, and we get excited. And again, I've said this a lot. I'm going to continue to say it. This has been one of my rallying cries this year, and I'm not going to stop. This year feels different because it is different. Okay. But again, this is all a part of building that foundation that I've talked about, right? Gear Cell 1. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. All right. Who's got the yoga pants on today? Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy, Gear Cell 1 writes, watching this made me feel so good that we finally have adults running the franchise now. I think I'm going to drink me some yoga skim milk and celebrate. Oh, nobody's wearing the yoga pants today. Now you're talking about drinking. I've never heard of yoga skim milk before. That's a new one on me, but okay. I like it. I like it a lot, right? Look, I think you're going to find yourself participating in a lot of yoga activities yourself where you won't be able to put it on somebody else because there's going to be too many good vibes and too much good juju being passed around over here. So you might be the one indulging in some yoga activity. I think that's going to become more of the trend here. Whereas in the past, you've had so many different punching bags. Somebody was going to have on something that was tragic, right? So I'm looking forward to seeing the evolution of Gear Cell 1. Rocky D, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Rocky D writes, if you haven't seen Bad Boys 4, you might not get it. But Chef P reminds me of Reggie from Bad Boys 4. Didn't expect the personality change. I So I haven't seen Bad Boys 4, but I do know Reggie from previous Bad Boys. So I guess we'll see. I'll see when I watch the movie. But yeah. Reggie was the boyfriend that showed up. They, how old? Mother, you look 30, right? Or you look 40 or whatever he said. However old he said he looked. So you just gave me a little hint as to what to expect from Reggie and Bad Boys 4. Looking forward to seeing what that looks like. There was definitely there's a switch for Chef P for sure, right? There's Adam Peters, and then there's Chef P. Two different dudes, right? Same, grit and tenacity exists, but one is a stone cold killer, and the other is, happy go lucky, all shucks, like, guy next door, right? So I love it, man. Adam Peters is my guy, but don't you push me. Don't you push Adam P. Because then you'll get Chef P. And that's when things start to get a little nasty. Jay Black, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Jay Black writes, Lou, rough and good to see the Super Friends back. I'm happy too. I'm happy that we're going to be back, and looking forward to chopping it up with the fellas. We got a lot of ground to cover. We've been absent for quite some time, and so we got to make up for lost time. So looking forward to having fun with the fellas again. I didn't realize how much I missed it until it was gone, Darnell Kelly, been a member for 33 months. Darnell writes, biggest takeaway, Josh being quiet, letting the people he's paying do their jobs. I forgot what that looked like. I've never taken Josh Harris to be an abrasive owner, meddlesome. He's inquisitive, which we saw him asking questions. This was his first, draft process, which is why he was at the combine. Like, he wants to experience all this stuff, kind of see what it's about. He's a guy that wants to make sure that, you're exhausting all options before you make a decision, right? He's the guy that's like, hey, work the phones, see if there's, an opportunity to trade back, trade up, whatever the case may be. But all in all, like you said, he's letting guys do their job. We'll never hear reports of him, calling into the war room from his yacht, telling them, hey, you got to draft the kid from Bullis. Yeah, Haskins, that kid, you got to draft him. But he's not even on our board, sir, as a first-round pick. You heard what I said. Draft the kid. You'll never hear that happen. So glad that whole episode is over with. Rocky D, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, any prospect on who's going to rep Dallas for the Super Friends? Nope. You have to tune in and see, right? You just have to tune in and see how we go about business, right? Jamal Hamlin, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Who writes, Lou, it's been a little while too, Jamal. Hope all is well. Likewise. My motto for the year is going to be a line from my favorite MC, the late Sean P. I will Abdul-Jabbar Muggsy Malone you. Don't know what it means, but you know what I mean when I told you. Feels good. Wait a minute. We're not talking about the same Sean P, are we? You said the late Sean P. Now you got me. Oh no. Oh yeah, he died a while ago. I don't know why that didn't register. Okay, no, I'm thinking about somebody else. That's why. Yeah, no. Yeah, I was thinking about somebody else. Okay, I'm about to say, damn, how I missed that? Okay. Feels good. I'll tell you this much, man. And I know I've said this before, and it probably won't be the last time I say this, but this offseason has been one of the most reinvigorating off seasons I've ever experienced as a fan. And I've had really good off seasons before, fun off seasons, looking forward to the season. You're coming off of a division crown and you're feeling good and you're sticking your chest out. I've had off seasons like that before. And, you know, some of the moves that have been made during that off season have pointed to us getting better. I think I really felt that way in 2016, right? Not so much in 2013 because Robert got hurt. And so you really didn't know what to expect. He was all in for week one, but we had no idea what, you know, that kept a black cloud over that offseason. I think 06, and that was a very disappointing season, but 06 and 2016 were the two off seasons where you coming off of a playoff, you know, performance. In 05, you won a game and almost made it to the NFC Championship game. So that was a little different. You know, 2015, you should have beat Green Bay, but you didn't. But you felt really good going into that season until Antonio Brown showed up and started twerking on you on Monday Night Football to kick off the season. But you got Josh Norman and you were feeling really good. And, you know, you're coming off of Kirk Cousins playing at a high level. You like that. And you got Deshaun Jackson and Pierre Garçon and Jordan Reed. And so that was a hell of an offseason. But all of those pale in comparison to this because there's no more Daniel Snyder. Like, even if you thought there was a chance, you knew that there was always still a black cloud over the franchise, and you were never going to be a sustainable winner because of Daniel Snyder's presence. That's now gone, completely removed from the discussion and the conversation. We're free. We're free to breathe. We're free to enjoy our fandom, not look over our shoulder and want to know when the next, you know, sexual misconduct accusation is going to be levied at us. And, you know, having to duck our heads like, oh, here we go again, right? The black sheep of the NFL. Again, I said this the other day. Think about how far we've come in just a short period of time when we're being featured in an NFL documentary about the draft. They could have taken New England. They didn't have to skip over the Patriots. They could have used New England instead of Washington. They drafted a quarterback too. They could have chose the Atlanta Falcons. They surprised everyone and took a quarterback. They could have took the Denver Broncos. I think they are in this anyway. They could have went no, they didn't. It's Chicago, us, Arizona, and the Rams. They could have took the Denver Broncos. They could have done whatever they want, but they chose us. We're marketable again, and we're on the rise. Ain't no stopping us now. We on the move. We're moving, grooving. Feels good. JB, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. JB writes, hey, Lou, AP gave Howie the Kevin Costner from draft day. That was a great exchange, right? Our GM flexing his muscles. Howie Roseman showing how he gets over on dudes. Like, Howie's a tough, like, you know, Chef P said, Howie's a tough cookie, right? He's a good dude, but Howie drives a hard bargain, and if you let him, he'll be ski mask Howie if you let him. right? There's predators and there's prey. You got to decide which one you're going to be. Most of the time, Howie Roseman is the predator. And he thought he was sizing up our GM to be his prey. And our GM said, nah, bro, you got the wrong one. I'm just as mean and vicious as you are in these streets. And if you want to take it there, we can take it there. You got to go somewhere else with that. Love it. Jay Willard, thank you for being a member for 33 months. Greatly appreciate you. Jay writes, hey, Lou. What's up, Jay? What are your thoughts on the kicker? Do you think we will go after Jake Bates or wait for cuts before the season starts? Green Bay has like 3 kickers. There's a lot of teams with 2 and 3 kickers on their roster. I couldn't tell you what they're going to do. They're not done. I'll just tell you that. They had Lucas Haverick in here this week. They're going to continue to parade kickers. And I already told you, the likelihood is Ramiz Ahmed is not going to be our opening day kicker. That's my guess. You know, he's nothing more than a mere placeholder at this point. If he makes it out alive, then he had to kick his ass off this summer because he's going to be challenged at every turn. Every time a reputable kicker with NFL experience gets released, they're going to check the temperature. John Bates' season is over here in the next couple of weeks. I wouldn't be shocked if we kick the tires on him. And again, if I'm his agent, I'm telling him, I'm going to Washington. You go to Washington, bro. They don't have a kicker right now. I'm not even looking at Ramiz Ahmed as a real kicker. I'm saying, hey, they got a vacant kicker spot. You want to kick in the big times? You want to kick in the NFL? Here's your opportunity. Go to Washington. Because you go anywhere else, you're competing with a true NFL kicker with NFL experience or a guy they drafted this year, which why would you want to do that when you got an opportunity to come in here and probably be the front runner? So Bates, I think, will be in the mix. We'll see. But they're going to be more guys brought in. You can bet your ass that. DJ23, been a member for 16 months. Really appreciate you. Who writes, I've never been this hyped for a season in a while. You sound like my son. You can't say I've never been hyped for a season like this in a while. Never and a while don't go in the same sentence. Either you've never been hyped like this before or you haven't been hyped like this in a while. But I get what you're saying. I'm with you. As far as, but I was hyped last year. I ain't going to sit here and act like I wasn't hyped last year. I was hyped. I wasn't as hyped for Carson Wentz as it was. I felt like I was trying to defend Carson Wentz. I found myself defending him all 2022 offseason, right? I was defending him against the Indianapolis Colts and their GM, Chris Ballard, and their owner, and Jim Irsay, and Eagles fans. And I just felt like I was defending him that offseason. And I just kept saying, if you could just give us what you gave the Colts last year, which didn't happen. Last year, I was sold on Sam Howell. And I wasn't defending Sam. I was telling people, you're going to see. I got EB'd, though. I got EB'd. I can tell you this. I haven't been in this good of a place of peace with this team. Ever. That I do know. I can't tell you I haven't been this hyped because I've been hyped before. I've never been in this kind of serenity with this team. I can't say this is nirvana because we haven't won shit. Like when you get to know nirvana, there's no higher level of happiness. I'm at a place of peace right now. Like whatever happens this season, you can't make me upset outside of Jaden Daniels looking like absolute dog shit. You can't make me upset about this season. I'm going to walk away saying, man, year one of this new regime looked fill in the blank. And whatever it looked like, I'm going to be able to tell myself that whether it was good, bad, ugly, indifferent, better than expected, whatever, I'm going to be able to tell myself when it's all said and done, we took a step towards winning consistently. Again, need I remind you, the 49ers, what year one looked like for them? Go look it up. They all got there in 2016. Go look at what 2017 looked, or they all got there in 2017. Look up what their record was in the 2017 season. Go look at what their record was in the 2018 season. Go look at the Detroit Lions first year under Dan Campbell. Go look at what their record was that first year. All right, I think it was 2021 was his first year in Detroit. Go look up what their record was in 2021. Go look at what their record was in 2022. It takes time, is what I'm trying to convey. So whatever it looks, I'm not going to be deterred as long as everything looks the part. And that's me telling you I'm at a place of peace, somewhere I haven't been with this organization ever. Even when I thought I was getting to that place in 2012, Robert snaps his leg in half and he was never the same. There was never any peace that offseason. Nothing but strife. Him telling, the quarterback's coach and the offensive coordinator and the head coach with his dad what he was and wasn't going to do. You need to take these plays out of the playbook. There was never peace in 2013. He's all in for week one. He's got a documentary all in for week one. There was never any peace. And there was always still Snyder there, right? You can't have peace with Dan Snyder as your owner. There's nothing but unrest. I'm definitely in a place of peace and serenity right now. Jamal Hamlin, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. My guy, Jamal, thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Writes, don't know what happened with Law, but the fall heard around the world was epic. And Sean Price boot camp click. Yeah, I just saw that, right? Sean Price boot camp click. I was thinking about Sean P from the Youngbloods. I'm ashamed to say that, but that I had to say, wait a minute, when did he die? Like I was about to lose my shit for a second. But then I realized it was a different Sean P. So that's why I had to look it up, because I was like, wait, did that just happen? How did I miss that? You stupid, Jamal. Fall heard around the world. You stupid. DJ23, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy DJ23 writes, in continuity, Law is still passed out, or in continuity, Law still is passed out. That's why he's not in the video. LOL. Y'all cut your foolishness out. All right. I hear your jokes. All right. Y'all leave Law alone, man. C Trill, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. C Trill writes, sup, Lou? Sup, C? I love how JH was cheesing Josh Harris in them expensive Harry Potter glasses, looking proud with the staff he built in the war room. Let's keep that man smiling. Can't wait for the season to start. You could tell he was enjoying the process too. That was his first time in a draft war room. Like the NBA draft isn't as intense. It's 2 rounds. You probably got 2 picks, 1 in the first round, 1 in the second round. Whoopee. You might have 2 in the second round. Like, it's not the same animal, right? Hockey isn't the same. Okay. Hockey is more of akin to baseball, right? You got young players. You don't know when they're going to be ready to contribute. Football is a different animal. A lot going on. It's so much information to take in. You saw him looking through, their kind of cheat sheet of sorts of all the prospects. And he's like, okay, so you're kind of trying to, catch up to speed on one of the guys that they like or whatever, right? So you could tell he was enjoying the process. He was enjoying himself. He was like one of us. Like, I always just think about Josh Harris as being a fan. Like he's like one of us, but he's not like the kind of fan that you go that is annoying. Like you're like, bro, go sit down somewhere. Like go sit in the corner. All right, when we ready for you, we'll call you. Just go sit down. He's one of them guys. Like he's like how we would be if we was in the draft war room, like nerding out. Like, oh man, that's crazy. Are we trading back? What did they say? You know, they get on the phone and you know how your kids be. You on the phone and your kid, they know you talking about them or like y'all supposed to be going to a party. What did he say? What did he say? Are we going? Like you can tell, like they on the phone and he's like, are they gonna do the deal? Is he gonna do the deal? Right? Like he was just having a good time, like sort of like if they let one of us in the draft war room, right? Kind of just walking around, not being too, meddlesome, but just being nosy enough that you know everything that's going on. That's kind of how I would be if I was in there. Like I want to stay out of the way, but I want to be in the know, right? I want to be close enough to the action where I know exactly what's going on in real time, but I don't want to be in the way to the point where you're like, hey, bro, I need you to step off, right? So, yeah, that was pretty cool watching him. And yeah, let's keep him smiling because if he's smiling, that means good things are happening. We all want to be smiling, right? Craig Harrison, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Craig writes, for someone who's loved this team more than I could ever verbalize, this is almost moving to tears worth. You just go, wow, this is how it's flipping done. Hard shit with good people. Words to live by, my man. Keep it up, LT. I don't really need to add much to that, Craig. Like I couldn't have said it any better. Like watching this episode and seeing just how far we've come, the direction that we're heading in, how everything's starting to come together, how we're moving with purpose. Everything is intentional. We haven't seen this level of intentionality, this level of competency. That's the word I was looking for. I was struggling to find it. I said, it's in there somewhere. Keep scrolling through that Rolodex. You'll find it. The level of competency that exists right now is a level that we just haven't seen since Gibbs 1.0. And a lot of us didn't really see Gibbs 1.0. So at the end of the day, for a lot of us, we've never seen this level of competency before. So you have to excuse us if it feels like we're a little over the top. For the older fans that have experienced winning and saw all 3 Super Bowls, you're like, yeah, this is cool because I didn't know if we would ever get back to, a level of competency, but let's just hold our horses a bit. Like, got a long way to go to get back to the glory years where we expected to win the Super Bowl. True. But when you've been down as bad as we've been for the last quarter century, you got to take your victories and your wins when you get them. And this whole entire offseason has been one massive dub. And we just keep stacking up bricks in that left-hand column. And I can't begin to tell you how good it's felt to keep stacking up the bricks in the left-hand column this offseason and look over in the right-hand column, and you might see 1 or 2 bricks over there. The Brandon McManus situation was definitely a brick in the right-hand column. And you could argue that O-line Bobby Johnson was another brick. But we don't know that for sure, and I don't want to put that on him. But for a lot of people, you probably put, a brick in the right-hand column for O-line Bobby Johnson. But outside of that, this has been a clean offseason, man. Just win after win after win after win. And Johnny Newton having foot surgery is probably another, brick in the right-hand column. That felt like an L, right? But he'll be fine. This has been a long time coming, and I can't say this enough. We deserve this. And you're going to hear me say that the rest of the summer as I continue to hype up the season. You're going to continue to hear me say this plenty of times. And I said it last year when Dan was finally out of here and ownership finally changed and we toast to the season. And I said it, we deserve this. Nobody deserves this shit more than us. Nobody's been through more than us. And I'm going to die on that hill. I dare you, I double dog dare you to find an organization that's been through hell and back like us. You can name any organization you want. I bet you they've been to an NFC championship game. I bet you they've been to a Super Bowl or some shit. Even Jacksonville's been to the goddamn AFC championship game. Even the Bears have been to the Super Bowl in the last 25 years. You can't find an organization that's been through worse shit than us. You want to bring up the Browns? Go right ahead. They just got back in the game in 2002, I believe it was. They don't even qualify for 25 years of bullshit like we do. You can't find a team that's been through more. You can't find a fan base that's been through more than us. Knock yourself out. I'm waiting. So, yeah, this shit feels good. And I'm not going to apologize for feeling good about this offseason. There are going to be a lot of cynical fans. You said that last year, Louie. Well, yeah, I did say that last year because I could see the wheels turning. I knew we were getting new ownership. And yes, I believed in Sam Howell. I'm not ashamed of that. I still think he's going to be a damn good football player in this league. But this is different. And if you can't acknowledge that, look, the results might be the same. We might not win but 6 or 7 games this year. Right? The results might be Rivera-esque. Okay? But it's not the same. And if you can't acknowledge that this is different, shame on you. I'm not going to sit here and try to convince you otherwise. Right? If you can't tell that this is different, just by seeing how business is being conducted, if this doesn't feel different to you, if this doesn't appear different to you, then I can't help you. Good luck. You're going to need it. But you're not going to steal my joy, okay? I'm going to enjoy this season. Every aspect of it, the ups, the downs, the sideways, the coming, the going, the peaks, the valleys. It's going to be a roller coaster ride this year because you're dealing with a young team that's trying to recalibrate and find its north. But I'm going to enjoy the ride because this has been one hell of an offseason. Better than I could have imagined. This has exceeded my expectations wildly. Only thing that could take it to the next level is if somehow the play on the field and the record reflects that. So I feel you, Craig. I feel you. Craig Harrison, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, I teared up a couple of times. I can't effing wait. They tried to get me with Daryl, but the good thing was I had already seen Daryl's whole situation. Now, there were different parts of it that were a little bit more in depth that they didn't give us, that they saved for this episode. But for the most part, we had seen most of Daryl. So they had already got me on that. They wasn't going to get me again, right? I already knew what to expect. But, you know, they tried to take me out the first time with Daryl, right? Craig Harrison, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Craig, writes, they give you the expectation to expect HTTR forever. And that's something that's been lacking here for a very long time, is any expectations. I told you, I'm not putting any expectation on this season, but what I am looking for moving forward is a standard. And expectations and standards are two different things, and they're not to be confused. Expectation is going into the season with this is what we should do, right? We should win X amount of games. Anything less than that will be uncivilized. Going to be the disappointing season, right? That's expectation. You either meet it or you don't. A standard is a culture, is a way of doing things, right? We have standards around here now, right? This is what it means to be a commander. This is how we conduct ourselves. Like the mentality of we're going to be a run and hit team, that is a standard, right? We're going to fly to the football. That is a standard. This is a mindset. That is what I need to see established this year. And it's already happening because it starts up here. Before you can actually put it into physical action, it's got to be done mentally. And they've already begun that process of rewiring a lot of the guys' brains that have been here who have seen it done in a lackluster fashion, that they're changing all of that. And it really resonated with me when I listened to why am I blanking on his name? I can see his face. I don't want y'all help. I'm going to think of his name by myself. Golly. Dorrance Armstrong Jr. When Dorrance Armstrong said, it's hard. What they ask of us, what they demand of us, it's hard. That's why every team ain't out here flying around on film like that, because it's hard doing that. But it just all harkens back. It all harkens back to what Joe Witt Jr. said. This ain't for everybody. This style of play, this mentality, this ain't for everybody. We don't expect it to be. We don't want it to be for everybody. It takes a special type of individual, a special rare breed to meet the commander tag. That, my friends, is what you call a standard. We're in the process of setting that right now. And boy, I can tell you, being void of a standard for so long, it feels so good to finally have one. Jamal Hamlin, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Jamal writes, hey, Lou. What's up, Jamal? Guess what? We got bullies all over. Let Philly try that ish again. We're going to whoop your ass. I love it because for so long, it just, like, even the Giants, like, the Giants get bullied all over the division, but they always got us, right? They can always look down their nose at us and say, hey, you shut up. Like, even when we want to laugh at the Giants, they always can quickly snap back. Like, I always liken that to the dude that's getting fried up at school, right? They just killing him. And he can't say nothing to them because he can't do nothing to them. But you better not laugh if you a little peon that he can pick on. So while you snickering and laughing, he can't say nothing to the bullies. But what he can do is say, what you laughing at? I know you ain't laughing. And then he can get on your ass, right? That's how the Giants do us. Like, we can't say shit to nobody in the division. Not even the Giants. At least the Giants, they can't say nothing to Dallas or Philadelphia, but they can always say, you shut up, though. You don't laugh. Because we own your ass. I'm sick of that shit. I don't want nobody to have that kind of power over us no more. That shit don't feel good. I got a feeling that all of this shit's about to change. All of this shit's about to change. Abner Duran, my guy Ab. What up, Ab? Live from Mexico. What's up, Ab? Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. How many games you getting out to this year? I need to see that flag, man. My guy Ab writes, my man Lou, what's going on, Ab? just showing some love and that I'm always here, although it doesn't always seem like it. The best for you and your family. Saludos desde Mexico. I appreciate you, man. Look, I'm a lurker, so it's all good, bro. As long as you continue to check for the content and you hear in spirit and you showing up in those numbers in the view count, I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for the support. And it's always good to hear from you, Ab. And I can't wait to hear when you're making that trek to Commander's Field with your flag. Make sure you post that so I see it, man, because you're a good luck charm, man. We don't take L's when you show up in the building. So make them count like you always do, man. It's always good to hear from you, Ab. And I look forward to chopping it up with you as the season progresses. Good to hear from you, man. Speaking of Ab, he made me think about the LTN lifestyle trip to the Dominican Republic. If you're out there, you're watching this video, please check out the link. If you're interested in going, you got questions, hit me up. I'm more than happy to answer. We're going to have so much fun going to the Dominican Republic, to the resort, Punta Cana, having a blast, having some competitive fun. Also, we are going to chop it up. We're going to have some drinks. We're going to kick it. We're going to turn up. We're going to have a blast. I can't wait to meet all of you that attend. Remember, only 50 spots are available. And shout out to all of you who have already registered. I look forward to chopping it up with you guys and having a great time. So spots are filling up. So make sure that you get in if you are interested in going. The link is in the description of this video, every single video. And also the link has been placed in the comment section by the mods. And I'll drop the link in there just in case it hasn't been dropped in there already. I will go ahead and drop it in there myself really quick so that you have it if you are interested. So once again, shout out to my guy Ab. Really, truly appreciate you. And I look forward to chopping it up with you in the future. Craig Harrison, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy Craig writes, I'll put it to you this way. I have a straight up bet, 3K between two Pete's. Who wins more games, Washington or Pitt? You sure you want to make that bet? You talking about the Pittsburgh Pirates or the Pittsburgh Steelers? You sure you want to make that bet? Now, I know neither one of their quarterbacks are necessarily, at this point right now, game changers per se, but you want to bet against Mike Tomlin? You sure you want to do that? Expectations, standards, and having a 3-year-old kid who will never endure the bullshit we did. Thank you again, my man. That's another aspect of this. Is my son's 5, and there are a lot of Cowboys fans coming at my son, and I'm over here fighting them off like mosquitoes in the summertime, right? We trying to repel them, but it's easier to sell your kid on, hey, this, you want to be a fan of this team if you're winning, right? I think it's going to be an easier sell to the youngins, you know. It's hard to get a young kid that's impressionable to root for a team that sucks all the time. Just think about when you were young. Some of us, you know, some of y'all grew up in environments where you didn't have a choice, right? Your family were, you know, Redskins fans, so you just had to be. But I'm not going to force my son to do anything he doesn't want to do, but I am going to push him, guide him, right, in the direction that I want him to go. But it's a lot easier when the team is actually winning. Nobody likes to root for a loser. Not when I have options, not when I have choices. So, Craig, I'd be careful with that bet, my man. Just being honest. I wouldn't do that if I were you. Sounds like you already did it. I'm praying for you. Okay. Abner Duran, my guy Ab, been a member for 33 months. Salud. Salud, Ab. Eric Sunderland, been a member for 9 months. Appreciate you. My guy Eric writes, saw the video, currently drinking the Kool-Aid. Yeah, these types of videos do encourage picking up the cup. Nothing wrong with that. Just don't overindulge. That's always my message this time of the year is nothing wrong with picking up the cup and filling her up. It's how many times you go back. How many times, like if you sipping slow, you can sip that one cup, fill it up to the brim and sip slow and just chill in the corner, man. Peep the scene. Some of y'all start guzzling and going back. And remember, this punch is spiked. Now, we all fans here. So we all encouraging one another. This is spiked punch now. Okay. Not a lot of there is some objectivity. There are some in the fan base that are going to make sure they let you know, hey, seen this shit before. It's going to be a few of those in here. And I welcome you. Remember, everyone's welcome here, by the way. The cynics, the people that are jaded, you know, the fans that are like, I'll believe it when I see it. Everybody's welcome here. We need those perspectives too to keep us grounded. If we all drinking the Kool-Aid, we all drunk. Who's driving home? Right? Somebody's got to be the designated driver. I'm sipping slow. I got my cup. I always got my cup. Okay. Some years it's less. Some years it's more. Some years I'm drinking faster. Last year I was guzzling. Chip, 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 chip. I was guzzling last year. I was pissy drunk last year. Not going to happen this year. I can drive us home if you need me to. I'm going to warn you, I'm going to be a little buzzed, but I'm going to get us home safely. You don't have to worry, right? Craig Harrison, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Craig writes, old lady is a Cowboys fan. I feel you. Look, my wife was a Cowboys fan when I met her. I had to convert her, bruh. It ain't happening. I done had some conversations with I can't remember his name, but he was like, man, we gotta win. These car rides home with my wife are unbearable when we lose, bro. I couldn't imagine. Like my wife is like my mom, and my mom is the worst. Like my mom is the type of person that you would want to punch in the face. She's so obnoxious. And my wife is the same way. So I was like, you got to be on my team. Because if you not, this shit ain't gonna work. Okay, I'm gonna be brutally honest with you. This shit ain't gonna work. All right, because I've gotten so much better, and a lot of it is because of y'all. I get to vent to y'all after these games. I was not a nice person after, because I'm competitive. I told y'all this already. I was not a nice person after losses. I just wasn't. Not a pleasant person to be around. You know, I need my space because if you know, just the littlest thing could set me off. You know, I used to take these losses really personal. I still do, but I have a chance to talk and vent and talk to you guys, and it makes me feel better. And I know that even if I want to be pissed off, sometimes I got to put my best foot forward for y'all, because if I don't, y'all already pissed off and I show up, you already got gasoline ready. And if I show up with a match, this shit's going up in flames. So sometimes I know I got to show up and be the voice of reason. Like, hey, put down the pitchforks and the torches, man. We all right. But I don't know how you do it, my man. Craig, you know what? That's love, bro. That's what that's called. That's real love. That's what you engaged in. That's real love. Abel Ambrosio, my guy, Double A, Been a member for 19 months. Right. 50 minutes of the video was a blessing. Can't wait, HTTC. Man, I did not expect a 50-minute video. Did not expect essentially an hour. Didn't see it coming. Did not see it coming. Abner Duran, my guy Ab. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. My guy Ab writes, I'm planning to show this flag all over at the home opener against the Giants and maybe a couple more games. That means we win in the Giants game week 2. That's a good feeling. Moreover, with this kind of pump up we just got from log episode 3, of course, you know, you'll be the first to know. I'm looking forward to it. And I'll be the first to retweet it when you put it out. All right. Looking forward to it. And if you're going to be in attendance at the home opener, that means we getting off to a good start in the division. That's what that means. Feeling good. Craig Harrison, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy Craig writes, no, sir. Shaking my head. Keg stand that shit. Expect and change. You a dangerous man, Craig. You need to come on this trip with us. That's what that sounds like. You a dangerous man. You and your wife need to come on this trip. Anyway, you a dangerous man, Craig. I can't. Yeah, you dropping 3 stacks on us winning more games than the Steelers. You're doing keg stands. Woo! See, this is what I'm talking about. Drink responsibly. Okay. Drink responsibly. All right. Some of y'all do not know the meaning of drinking responsibly. No worries. I'll help you guys. All right. Anyway, I digress. That's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on this installment of the Command Post Live. You know what it is. Post up. Take command. I look forward to chopping it up with you guys. This was a great show. And this is the first of many to come as we head into the, you know, the, what do we call these? I don't want to say dark days. It's not dark. It's still illuminated, right? I still feel really good. We'll call them the dull days of summer as we head into the heat of the summer without any activity. Brace yourselves. It's going to be a lot of Kool-Aid sipping. Okay, just warning you, right? A lot of pom-poms and cheering. This is the time of the year that this happens. I'm guilty of it. Guilty as charged. All right. But I'm going to make sure that I, in the process, are forewarning you about what's to come. And I'm going to make sure I cap it. Like, unlike the runs last year that happened against our defense that weren't capped, I'm going to make sure I put a cap on the amount of excitement that I project. But I'm going to be projecting a lot of excitement because I'm having a lot of fun this offseason. So understand that the period that we're about to embark upon will be one of celebration, for me at least. I can't speak for you. It will be celebratory. This has been a hell of an offseason, and I'm hoping that it just bleeds right into training camp, which bleeds right into the regular season, and hopefully we can start talking crazy. Some bonus football. I won't use that word. Don't you use that P word. Don't you start talking crazy. It's too early for that. But wouldn't it be nice? Wouldn't it be nice? Craig Harrison, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Craig Harrison writes, countdown to kicking ass. I like the way you think. I really, truly do. Countdown to kicking ass. You sound like DQ. Let's make it happen, Craig. Let's make it happen. Like Keith Sweat. Make it last forever, right? Just make it last. I'm trying to win and win big and do it over and over and over and over and over again. It's our time, you know. May not be this year, may not be next year, but it's coming. And when we finally hit our stride, we're going to have a hell of a run. I'd like it to start sooner rather than later. But on that note, let's get out of here. It's been an excellent show, a lot of fun, and it is a precursor of things to come. Episode 3 of Commander's Log, at the top of the pile, was epic. I look forward to chopping it up with you guys all this rest of this off season as we head towards training camp. Let the Kool-Aid sipping. Notice I said sipping, not drinking, not guzzling. Let the Kool-Aid sipping begin. See you guys next time. Take care. Enjoy your weekend. God bless. Good night.